I didn't have Greg Cody being the first in the studio today. Greg.
I know, that's so unusual.
I was surprised that he was coming. He did a thing on Sunday afternoon to me of, I'm coming in Sunday. That might replace my Tuesday this week, right? And I'm like, Dad, just one time, can you just not be Greg Cody?
I have a theory. I was greeted this morning by a gift. That was perhaps a Freudian slip.
Yes,
perhaps a Freudian slip.
Well, if it was Stugotz, it would be a grift.
It's a grift. Wait till you find out.
So Greg meets me this morning very cheery. I'm struggling today. Need the tea. So he meets me with a gift this morning, very cheery-eyed. And he's like, I want to thank you. And he hands me a bag, which I have right here. I've yet to open.
Oh, we got to open it on there.
I didn't mean this to be content. I mean, it was private.
Greg, we knew this was going to be content. So he greets me with this very happy face. I'm like, to what do I owe this honor?
Wow.
And it's because we were trying to come up with a conceit for a giveaway during our NFC Championship watch along. And the conceit was tweet the show a screen grab of you subscribing to the Greg Cody Show with Greg Cody. And yesterday, the Greg Cody Show podcast was in the top 20 of Apple Podcasts, sports podcasts. It went soaring up the charts.
Well, this is
and Greg, as a thank you, gave me this gift.
You've got to thank you, and this is where he always wins. And this is what I want to point out for me. I had a really fun weekend. I don't know that my weekend had a better moment in it after a weekend of fighting with Greg Cody about whether or not we should censor Billy Corbin, who's trying to protect Miami from all sorts of malfeasance.
Come on.
That Greg Cody.
Seriously.
That Greg.
Did Billy make you say that about
He's
him?
buying it all.
Quite the way of positioning that.
He's also an ego monster.
God. Geez, don't get me started on that. Self-important. Wow.
The idea that Greg Cody would want Billy Corbin banished and would think he is entitled to that, and then would throw it to the audience, and the audience would side with him easily. That, of course, they want the hijinks. They don't want the guy who's talking about serious things, whatever. Doing Billy Corbin things, trying to protect Miami. I think he does love Miami, no matter how crazy he is.
You got him as Batman. He's an egg avatar.
Protect Miami.
He's trying to keep all of the corruption off of him. And at the end of our weekend, when Greg Cody really had to be dragged in here, not just boycotting us, but dragged in here because he didn't want to do it initially. We were telling him you could get the podcast up there. I promise you, you'll get plenty of promotion for your podcast. And then he's like, okay, I'll go. He comes here, he cooks for us, and at the end of the night, as we are chronicling his descent till 10 p.m., which is going to be bad and we all know it, he has to do his podcast, which after 30 seconds of saying, oh, it was fantastic, he said, back to you guys, and made us do the next.
Didn't even pose a question.
Well,
was just like, please, someone else
Hold
talk.
on a second. In Greg's defense, he did your podcast for 3 hours before
you,
that.
Billy.
It's not that hard, you know. Just give me 5 minutes here. Help me
Thank
out.
you.
The
Thank
best
you.
part about my dad and the podcast reaching the top 20 yesterday is that he had no idea about the Woody promotion. Well, at least he did, but he forgot because, Sunday was a long night for him. So he was in his mind thinking, look what we've done. We've just reached the top 20.
Right.
And I was like, Dad, it's because of the thing Woody did at the end to get people to resubscribe. He's like, oh, we should do something for Woody. He thought it was all just him talking that got into the top 20.
And not even is what I'm saying. His podcast is him talking for 30 seconds and totally running out of anything interesting to say and just throwing it back to us. And that's in the top 20 because Greg continues to not notice that Mike Shit's #1 hits.
Don't sell Greg short, though. He also became a meme. Because that image of him looking up confused at the television with his mouth wide open, looking like a cross between Liberace and John Waters.
It was amazing. I have a friend for 30 years.
Ameem El Hassan.
Really?
How about
He
that?
came bearing gifts and grifts.
Wow.
I have a friend, we have a friend of 30 years who sent me that picture and just asked what happened to Cody. Because him looking up at the television with smeared lipstick, looking nothing like Walter Mercado, but looking amazingly like an old woman wearing smeared makeup.
He looked like my abuela Ida.
Thank you.
After a night
What a
of
compliment.
torrid sex that she just wasn't expecting. An old woman that had gone 20 years without sex, who had just been jostled sexually.
yeah.
And
Baby.
It's like abuela Ida went to La Rosa with Nino, and she came back for a nightcap. That's what Greg Cody looked like. My abuela Ida after a nightcap with Nino.
what's happening in that? What is it about that photo that everyone is enjoying so much? Is it because there is delight on his face, but it's also the face is the makeup's falling apart.
Yeah,
I've
it
seen
did.
a filter on it. It looks like some sort of Renaissance painting a little
Thanks. That's a compliment.
It really does.
Oh.
It looks like a bit of art. If somebody was in the Louvre and like smeared one of the paintings with their shoulder, and the paint smeared across the lips of the Mona Lisa.
It's the breaking of character. It's you're dressed ridiculously, but you're still watching a football game and will have the same reactions as you would without a ridiculous amount of makeup on your face.
Well,
Right.
Mike pushed me off this, and he was right to do it because he said, Dan, you're killing the vibe here. Get out of the room. But I was trying, while dressed as Ronald McDonald, to rush to Mina Kimes' defense. I was trying to publicly rush to help her in an indignant fashion.
Normally, I'm a big fan of the important societal point made whilst being dressed up. But when you're there and the Miller lights are flowing and we're all here for a game, get out of here, buzzkill.
I'm with you. I understand. I practically invited.
Mina was doing just fine. She had plenty of defenders.
Yes,
It's
she did.
okay.
I'm just saying she
It's an
didn't.
odd place for you to defend her.
She
Dan.
had plenty of clowns.
What's the gift?
We should describe that the gift bag that you got says "Too Witty" from and a bumper sticker of the Greg Cody Show with Greg Cody logo.
of those?
So what have you done here? Because I do think in these, if we do watch parties again, I think we got to give stuff away here. I think we've got so many of these things here that people would want.
Man,
These,
we
What, the
had-
tiles?
Oh,
Yes.
tiles?
yeah,
Not
like
athletic greens, not CBDMD.
Well, that
not
too. I'm
swag
just
bag.
saying-
Pop and play.
I'm just saying that we could start throwing things around that people would want from little pieces of art that people would want from us fooling around and making Greg Cody a top 20 podcast when he just belched out 30 seconds and then went.
Well, keep in mind, that was only the last 8 minutes of my podcast. The main part of the podcast was the Greg Cody Show non-sports Olympics.
Ah.
Tell us more.
You know, it's we have a call-in line that we gave people, and they're going to call in with their non-sports Olympics.
It's things you do in your life that aren't sports related that you feel you could compete at an Olympic level.
Wow.
Right.
Small talk,
And-
carrying groceries,
Right.
that type thing.
One of mine is the toe lift.
The
where you-
toe lift.
Yeah, where you're,
love this.
You're barefoot. You put a penny, any coin really, a penny on a carpet, and you pick it up with your toes.
You can't do that.
And you're of course I can.
Nah, I
and
don't
you're
think
timed.
so.
You're timed doing it like most
All you-
Olympic events.
All he has to do is entrap it in the big toe,
no,
That's right.
and we're good.
I don't think you can do it.
I mean,
What's the most difficult
Let
thing
me
you
see.
picked up with your big toe?
the bigger the coin, the tougher. Obviously.
Right, of course.
Really?
But
Yeah.
that goes totally opposite of what I thought.
But here's something a lot of people wouldn't consider: the dime is the most difficult because it's almost too small.
Right.
You know, I
that's
think
the opposite of what you
said.
the
Yeah,
penny,
yeah.
the penny is the go-to coin.
I'm
You
confused.
just said the bigger, the more difficult, and then you said the dime.
But the exception is the dime. The exception to the
So
rule.
the smallest thing is the hardest, but other than that, bigger is tougher.
Right. The quarter.
So you already
and the
covered
penny.
this in your podcast, though. More,
I
you
get it.
covered
Oh, yeah.
You covered it better than this in,
In
your
great
podcast.
detail.
The nickel is easier than the dime, is what you're saying.
Yes, correct.
But that goes against what you said a minute ago.
Well, the exception is the dime.
But you're saying you think that's the reason it was in the top 20.
yeah, oh yeah, no doubt.
So guys, you
It
should be
struck
taking
a nerve.
notes right now. You should be taking notes.
Yeah.
You haven't had stupidity in the top 20 in a while.
People all over the country, people on the internet are talking about the new episode.
Well, we should.
I mean, God bless has been carrying the Friday show for months. Anyway, we digress.
Wow, oddly defensive making an appearance.
That was a weird shot for Mike to take.
What? It's a weird shot too.
South Beach Sessions hasn't been in the top 20 in a long time either.
I also love that barb as if the main show feed hasn't been carrying God bless football.
I mean,
Wait,
Main show
why
feed
is
has
it-
my name on
what
it.
just happened to the vibe in here? Hey, are you defending defensive about. All right, guys.
What happens when
It
you
was
say
an
number one
unnecessary
hit?
shot.
Whitty, can you put Stupidity in the top 22, please? Let's just figure out how to do that as well so that Stugotz can get
Send
you
us
a
the
grip.
pictures of you resubscribing and subscribing to Stupidity.
No, don't.
What do you mean don't? I
don't
think we
want
should
that
give
cheap
one of
shit.
the tiles away.
Yeah, we don't want that. We
No,
want nothing to
thank
do
you.
with that.
You don't want that?
No, we don't need you guys taking
I did
credit for our
early on,
success.
but now,
That's
you know.
okay.
You still say you're bigger than
You're good.
Oprah.
Well, I am. I mean, I was. I mean, if I was once for 1 week, then I always am. Bigger than Oprah.
Yeah. Stupidity is a giant. Stupidity is the official podcast of the Greg Cody Show podcast.
Oh,
That's
thank
how
you.
big Stupidity is.
Yep. It sponsors yours. You sponsor mine.
It's like, heck.
Yep.
Chris, honestly, tell me, I could
You're a
hear
good
you.
man.
You were in the other room, and I can hear you literally before we did this show on Sunday, 4 hours, no prep, all of us just wandering in to talk. The only thing that resembled prep from what I was seeing was Chris Cody telling his father, remember every time you're talking about the food that you made to have it be sponsored by the Greg Cody Show with Greg Cody or one of the segments in the Cody Show with Greg Cody.
This is just me reminding him about the bits he's come up with. Earlier in the day, he's like, I got this great idea. All of these dishes are going to be sponsored by something different from the Greg Cody Show. And then we get in the moment, and I see the Miller Lights flowing through his brain, and I just do.
But it's not just that. It's not just the Miller Lights. It's the narcissism and, oh, they're asking me about my cooking. Let me tell you all my uninteresting thoughts about this because you clearly want them. It's not because we could possibly be going for the joke of this is sponsored by the Greg Cody Show with Greg Cody. But it would be high art if you guys could get that to number one. If you guys could figure out how today to just continue to do whatever it is you need to do so that the Greg Cody Show with Greg Cody can simply soar across the heavens.
This should help.
Let's see what we can do about doing that because Greg Cody hasn't been paid for the last, I don't know, 6 months. Like, let's detonate a bomb, not a metaphorical one, in the Herald newsroom because they don't want to negotiate with us on what that podcast could be if it were LeBatard and Friends.
Wait, does the Herald pay you to do that?
They don't pay me extra to do it. It's part of my.
Wow.
You know, they give me time to do it. I get 1 day a week. So yes and
Put
no.
it all out there.
No, but there need to be some trickle-down economics here because his son made us a lot of money, and we could make that podcast much bigger than it already is at the Herald. But Greg,
Man, I don't know. It's top 20 right now.
But I kind of tell my dad, like, there's pressures that come with joining this network. We're kind of in this safe space right now where we get to be part of the LeBatard without actually, like, I tell my dad, be careful what you wish for.
tell Adnan about that.
Oh,
Oh, boy.
dirty laundry. We're
What's
airing
that?
it.
No,
What is going
it's
on
no,
here?
it's just Adnan. People,
We're
man.
the same team or not?
No,
I
we
mean,
are all on the same team. But what's been funny about what's dissipated in the last year that the listeners who are angriest at us probably don't care to hear is we benefit from having an enemy. ESPN is no longer the enemy. We were inside the machine fighting against an enemy like sports culture, argument culture, all of that stuff. And we don't have it anymore. And Adnan, when he couldn't get on the show to yammer at ESPN, beloved, universally beloved. But now that he yammers uninterrupted with total freedom, some people are like, I don't want to hear about Macbeth.
What's the gift?
What is the gift?
That kind of seems sandwiched in.
I have taken a sneak peek, and I thank you very much, Greg. It is a book. It's called A Word a Day.
Oh, God.
365 words to
I-
augment your vocabulary.
That's
I already
the
do
perfect
Wordle.
gift for him.
Well, let me say.
There's also
More.
Brill Cream. 3-in-1 hair cream.
Nice.
Thank you.
Styles.
Thank you.
Strengthens.
Did you
and
go
conditions.
you go into a store to buy that?
2 stores. Yeah.
You went to an
Yesterday
old-fashioned.
afternoon.
You went
Wow.
thoughtfully bought.
I'm genuinely touched.
I have never gotten a thoughtful gift from Greg
Very
Cody.
nice. Yeah.
I've never in my life. Greg Cody has never in his life bought me a thoughtful gift.
He never thought to give you a gift. How about that?
And
Well-
Chris Cody just shat on it by going, it was my idea.
Other than that $150 bottle of tequila. It was my idea, by the way.
Well, no, Chris says otherwise.
I was in a Barnes & Noble buying that book. By the way, I leafed through it, and you're going to know probably 70% of those words, but there's some real gems in there. That kind of thing.
Top 20.
I can read today's if you'd like.
Well, can we do this? If we could get a back in my day, and we can get Chris Whittingham's word of the day, and we could teach people a little something through Greg Cody, who has a great love of words, probably more than anybody in this room, I think.
Well, Witty's like my adopted son in terms of being a wordsmith. Wow. I like that. I like people who care about the language and words.
Wow, he really
filled with honors for me this morning.
Through.
He left the rest of you out there. He's never bought us a gift.
Are you saying that Greg loves words, cares about words more than you do?
Yes.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Okay. And me? I mean, was an English major.
Greg Cody is very particular. I don't think you could catch Greg Cody very often on using a word incorrectly or pronouncing a word incorrectly. He's got a very he's got a deft sculptor's writing touch, no matter how much I make fun of him.
Thank you.
And what is that gift? What is the Brill Cream is a little dab will do you. Where did you find that? The first store didn't have it?
No, it's not. I almost said that's a funny story. It isn't a funny story, but it's a story. Publix didn't have it, and I asked the clerk, Brill Cream, and she was a young woman, so she's like, "How do you spell that?" She'd never heard of the word Brill Cream, so I'm spelling it. She's doing it on her phone. They don't have it, but then she says it's coming up that Walgreens has it. So I go to a Walgreens, and sure enough, there it is, right next to another archaic gift of its kind, Vitalis.
Ah.
So Walgreens is a gold mine for that kind of thing.
But do you realize you're a gold mine for you just lived a back in my day? You went to an old-fashioned store and you bought yourself some Brill Cream.
That's true.
And they check some inventory. Love a good checking of inventory.
The woman at the other place, just checked her phone, and that's what makes it not the 1950s.
Yeah, I should have done that. I didn't think of it.
And told him to go. But just the idea that you went out and purchased him a gift, a thank you gift. We now know what you love the most, which is, of course, clicks.
Mm-hmm.
That's a revelation, is it?
Nothing wrong with that, Greg. Don't apologize for it.
Thank you.
You got it.
But Stupidity does not want the clicks.
Oh, I mean, take any clicks we can get, Just the right way. We don't want to cheat.
There you go.
Yeah. Not me.
Why?
See, I don't mind cheating.
This is the time you don't want to cheat. That seems
I don't know
odd.
what's going on.
It seems odd. I don't understand.
We're happy to announce new benchmarks. Stugotz will unveil a word of the day as well.
Okay, let's do this. We're going to do this on Tuesdays, or we're just going to do this today. Tuesdays we will do a word of the day to replace soup of the day. Do you have a back in my day today?
I do, yeah.
Okay, this is very exciting. Which do you want to do first, Mike?
Well, this is the imaging for Stugotz's word of the day.
Guys, my word of the day is poopy. Thank you.
What part of speech is that?
How do you follow?
Language of origin?
It's a verb.
It's a verb.
Poopy is a
Well, in his word of the day, it is too poopy. It is.
Adjective.
It's not.
I mean,
It's
not an
not a noun.
Adverb.
It's not a noun. It's not a. It's not. I mean, that's perfect. In his book of word of the day, the first word is poopy, and then in parentheses, verb.
Adnan verb.
What? Robbed.
This is what I'm telling you, and it's okay if you want to go this inside, but if you give him the opening of every time he hears something, he can make a name pun, he will do nothing but that the rest of his career.
Even if it's not a good one?
Did we just not learn? He will keep doing. He got
Don't
one.
stop.
He got one Hakeem Nicks laugh.
Yeah.
If you encourage this,
Feeling confident.
he's going to launch 40 of them a game. Like, you're not going to be able to get the ball back from him.
Shoot or shoot, Dan.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
At bats. Cesar Tovar.
Thought you were going to go Shooter McGavin or some such thing.
I'm not that smart.
Whittingham, what is your word of the day?
So today, it is the 32nd word in this Word of a Day book because Today's February the 1st, the 32nd day of the year. And today's word is ostensible, an adjective. The Latin verb ostender, meaning to show, provides the root for ostensible. But take care when encountering this word, as there could be more going on behind the scenes. When somebody provides an ostensible reason for something, they're usually drawing attention to surface-level facts, when closer examination may reveal a discrepancy between what has been stated and what is actually the truth. In context, intelligence reports of hostile activity provided the ostensible reason for the war, although many observers believed there were political and economic motives behind it.
Poopy was better.
Thank you.
Yeah, they scored 17 against Columbus in the past 2 weeks. So that's
It's insane how many times recently this team has almost gotten to 10 goals. Like, they're making it a regular thing to get into 6, 7, 8 goals. Like, Roy, like, put this into context for me. Like, this offense is insane.
It's the third time this season they scored 8 goals.
Didn't they just set a record? I saw a tweet. Their goals in January were the most goals by a team since in 25 years.
25 years.
Can I back up
They're
for a
on pace
second?
to have the most goals scored in a season, like top 10 teams in hockey history in terms of most goals in a season. It's crazy.
190 right now.
Yeah.
I feel like Chris Cody, I don't want to fake it as a show, okay? Because some of us are paying attention to this hockey team, and this hockey team deserves to make a run. But I feel like Chris Cody was just trying to be a teammate, lobbing it up into the Roy wheelhouse by saying, put it in perspective for us, the amount of scoring, to throw him that stat, which is the one that Roy did not want, that stat, but Chris came back to, which is, in January, no team in the history of the sport has scored more. Isn't that where you were leading, Roy?
I saw that stat yesterday, but I'm just... More so, I just, like, obviously that hasn't happened in 25 years, but overall, just this team, like, how deep is this team compared to other, like, dominant offenses throughout the years?
Well, I'll give you the stats from the third scoring line from last night. Anton Lundell, 5 assists. That broke the franchise rookie record for points in the game, right? Mason Marchment, 2 goals, 4 assists. He had 6 points that game. That tied a franchise record.
Third line, baby.
And Sam Reinhart had a hat trick. And right now, Anton Lundell has 27 points. That leads all rookies. That's how deep this team is in scoring.
I feel like the idea that Reinhart is on the third line shows how deep this team is. That dude's like he could be a first-line player on some teams.
But also to have a guy who scored a hat trick and have him be the lowest points accruer on the night on one line is crazy. And as a matter of fact, they're breaking the Vegas lines. Like, I've heard people who know about hockey gambling, they're like, they can't set a line high enough for the Panthers in terms of their team totals, in terms of the over-unders for the game. Like, their over-under every night is 4.5 goals. And every night they go over. And every night they set I think the other night, the Saturday night game against the Sharks, the over-under was 7.5 in a hockey game. And it went flying over.
Yeah,
like, they can't set the lines high enough for this team.
Yeah, it's usually 6.5 goals for the total. So, yeah, they're shattering that.
16 out of the last 17 games, they've been 4 goals or higher. Think about that.
Over the course of the season, it's 23 out of 27 at home. They've scored 4 or more goals. So basically, every time you go to the arena, you're guaranteed to see your hockey team and that horn go off 4 times or more.
4.13 per game. That's the goals.
Roy talked about it. Lundell is the deep cut on this team because everybody knows Barkov. Everybody kind of knows Huberdeau. Well, not everybody, but hockey fans know those guys. If you're really a fan of this team, what is he, 20 years old?
Yeah.
Number 3 overall pick a couple years ago. He is the guy on this team. They put him on the power play. He defends on the penalty kill. I don't know the lingo as well as Roy, but they put him on when they're defending a penalty kill, which is like, that's when you trust somebody. You don't put people out there in that spot unless you really trust them. They use them in shootouts. That's the guy. Like, I want to get that jersey, Roy. I think if you're a Panthers fan and you don't want to be Ekblad, Barkov, Hubie, you get a Lundell
Billy,
jersey.
help me, because you have correctly, because South Florida feels like this Panther team, we've been here, but we haven't been here, where the enthusiasm of what it is that they're giving you is, oh, wait a minute, we've got one of the most unstoppable things in sports. We've got a thing that's shaking betting lines in Las Vegas, and we have it in the coolest playoff sport, and we have faster than everyone else, because you just speed bumped, Chris, the idea that they've got two superstars on their team. First of all, the having of two people whose excellence merits superstardom. Two, that's a starting point on all the great teams in this sport throughout history. If you're going to give me two guys on that, where top of the league, elite, great, and now all the other guys get to be, if we're going to use the parlance of the sports we talk about, the Kerrs and the Paxsons and all the other guys get to be like, oh, their best selves because we've got two game-breaking monsters.
Sam Bennett can be your third or fourth best player. Is pretty nasty.
Right. And Reinhardt, by the way, after a hat trick, was not even the first star of the game.
Nope.
I wonder how often that's happened, where a hat trick isn't the first star of the game.
Who was the first star?
I don't even know.
Mason Marchman.
Right.
Wow.
Did he have two?
Yeah, 2 goals, 4
Okay,
assists,
yeah.
6 points. That tied the franchise record points.
I can't.
Piercing eyes that young man has.
Marchment's very like. There's something about his look. Mike is so right. He's like
It's the eyes.
He's kind of rough looking, but he's sneakily the best looking guy on the team.
Kind of looks like what's going on there because he has the mustache.
Those eyes
but
have seen some
eyes
things.
just draw you in. You know what I'm
He's
talking
got a
about?
look. It's like it's like a Pete Davidson thing where it's like he's not naturally the most attractive person, but you look at him, it's like I'm attracted to him. I don't know what's happening.
Well, this is the best thing in sports right here, and not because they're scoring a lot, but because we are now objectifying the talent and looking into their eyes.
Yeah.
Like this, this is when you
They're
really.
piercing, Dan.
This is
my
those are
word.
the No,
Opposite of Pete
no, but this
Davidson's eyes.
Yeah, no, the exact opposite.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Does Pete Davidson have a?
gonna say- Save
Maybe
it
not
now.
the eyes, but the overall vibe. You see him on the ice, he's just you can't stop looking at him.
Why am I drawn to this person?
Right. It's a vibe. But we said all this good stuff about the Panthers offense. I'm still nervous about this first round playoff matchup.
Yeah, I don't trust Bob.
Until they win a playoff round, I'm just going to always think we're that team that takes a shit in the playoffs.
Who would it be right now?
I want to figure out if Mike Ryan is right that we are literally falling in love with this team. We're staring into their eyes. We're looking at them, and we're like, you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I don't ever get to feel this way about hockey. Hockey's usually so cold, but I feel warmth. I feel glow. I'm finding these men attractive as I get to know them.
It's been a slow burn. We've known this core for several years. I mean, Barkov, Dwayne Wade fell into Barkov's lap playing at the old AAA.
It's the depth they've added, right?
Yeah, Huberdeau feels like he's been here for like a decade, and now he's the points leader. And you're seeing all these players crescendo at the exact same time, and they're still relatively young, which is kind of wild because you have this
With new
superstar
ones
core.
coming in, Mike.
Yeah, you have this superstar core, but they're still relatively young.
But Mike, if I can rewind for a second, because I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this team. I'm learning here over the last 2 years. But I asked you, I feel like 6 weeks ago, are they not also young? And your answer was they're not that young. And I'm thinking to myself, because you've got two guys entering stardom and peak age, and you're getting the thing that you always need in these rough and tumble sports, which is the pain of losing to somebody who's great, like the Lightning, where you gotta come back as something else. You gotta come back stronger if you care about your craft. And the Panthers this year, I think what you're watching, you tell me if I'm wrong, but the thing that excites you the most is, oh, wait, if they're scoring more goals than any team in January in the history of the sport in their last or however many years, is this thing getting stronger? Is this monster right now that we're starting to get excited about? Because these are the best things in sports. If I put the hockey playoffs on you right now and I tell you, hey, you've got the beast. You've got the thing that can go off for 6 goals a game and erase the goaltending problems you have.
I don't know if they can totally erase them because there are other beasts in that East. And to your
They
original
play one
point,
tonight, the Rangers.
Yeah, to your point, when I said that they're not that young, most of the players are hitting their prime right now. So it's not like you've got Sidney Crosby at 18 years old. Like Jonathan Huberdeau has been in the league for 10 years, but he's also 28 years old. Aaron Ekblad is a name that feels like we've heard that name for like 2 presidents ago.
Yeah.
He's a year younger than Deebo Samuel.
But does history not show us with this team that those guys usually become Javanovsky?
Who's that?
Jovo.
Jovanovski.
Jovanovski.
Ed
There you
Jovanovski.
go.
Big
Ed,
Ed.
Ed Jovanovski.
That those guys
$10.
that play for. Why did it go to $10?
I mean, it's an easy one. He's a legend down
but
here.
why-
Should have
but
just said
Janikowski
Jovo
plays
Cop.
football.
What is the maximum? I just want to understand. I want to get.
Well, for Jovo, I mean,
No.
it should be $10. That's a name you should know.
Yeah, you gotta know it.
It's like getting Dan Marino wrong. you know?
Okay,
Marino.
but I'm
Call
asking
him
you.
John Craddy.
I'm asking you. You are correct. I am getting more and more names wrong. But what I am asking you,
Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, I know what you're asking me.
Dan Marinera.
you owe $6 from yesterday.
I do?
You do owe
Keeping
$6
track, huh?
from yesterday.
Wow.
And I am going to pay my fine, but I'd like to rein in the boundaries.
I'll
on
tell
this.
you what, okay? You owe 4, and we're even. I owe 6, you owe 10. You just put in 4, and we're even. How about
Perfect.
that?
Wow.
Yeah, good? We're
Makes
good.
sense.
All right.
He's giving
Jovo.
me. He's
Yeah.
giving me a grift. I'm asking the question seriously because I want to get the boundaries on this, and I want to start respecting this more because the last couple of times we've gone to the fine bucket, it hasn't had enough money in it. So you owe $6, and I will pay a fine here. But I'm asking you, is it or is it not the maximum fine that if I get a name wrong, it's a max of $5? Any name wrong.
Unless it's a name, like such an easy name
Well,
that you
when
have to
did-
get
but-
right.
but
I
when
just
did-
made it up now.
But when did that? Okay, so now this is a new fine system. Tell me what the new fine system is.
If it's a name like Jovo or
Okay, so
Beezer
you're gonna
or
decide
Dwayne
that?
Wade or
You-
Dan Marino, yes, I will decide
That's
that.
that's
Yes,
an odd rule.
It is.
It's going to hurt me because it's going to be now. So the
Fine.
maximum fine is now what then? $10?
It's just an
$10,
odd- It's just
yeah.
an odd rule from the maker of screwing up the word "is" on last week's Stump the Meach.
That's okay though. I think it's fair that he demand this kind of perfection from me because I want that fine bucket to have more money in it. But Jovanovski, Jovo,
Thank you.
when they had the number 1 pick from a teenager, he was supposed to morph into within 10 years, even though he wasn't electric like Huberdeau. He was
No,
supposed
but
to be.
Not as a defenseman.
No, but
No.
he was an important piece in the Pavel Bure trade.
But I'm saying that
was
guy, he had a great career, but he was supposed to be that for the Panthers, where you come to these expectations of
League-wide stars, not just Panthers stars.
Right. Well, I think part of the Panthers' problem since their inception really is they had bad lottery luck. For as many down years as a franchise had, they were never lucky enough to get that dynamo that was available. They were never getting the Ovechkins. They were never getting the Crosbys. They were never getting the McDavids. This is a slow build. This is development of Jonathan Huberdeau in year 10. Aaron Ekblad was a real good draft pick, and he's panned out. But historically, they haven't been able to get those absolute surefire prospects. And when they have picked high, they haven't necessarily worked out. This is a long, 10-year-long build.
They have one thing to prove, the Panthers. It's the road, because their record at home is record-breaking. They're under 500 on the road. They've lost more than they've won. And I think, I could be out by a game, I think 23 of their last 36 games or something of that nature are on the road. So this is a team that could go from first place to third place pretty quickly if they don't figure out how to translate their home effort into their road effort. At home, this is the first time, Roy, I'd be curious your opinion on this. This is the first time in years, ever maybe, where if the Panthers are down 2-0 in the first period at home, I'm totally confident they're going to win the game.
You don't sweat it.
I don't
Right.
even,
Yeah.
I would still bet them at 2-0 at home.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They can flip a switch just like that, and we saw that in the Sharks game on Saturday. Like it was amazing. Like it was the biggest crowd of the season, 18,200. Like people are now starting to show up to these games now.
With a Heat game. I found that interesting. Their
Crazy.
biggest home game attendance of the year was with a home Heat game. It was just cool to see that.
But this is how things become cool, is what I'm telling you. We're in the middle of it. You could sit here and do what Cody's doing, which is 1 seed, 3 seed. No, man, this thing's as good as anybody's got. Like, you could question it if you want. If you prefer to question it, then enjoy it. Okay, and maybe it loses in the first round because hockey's weird. But you've got something that is not just possibly everyone in the sport talking about that can compete for best in the league. Good. It's also the most exciting thing to watch. The way they play, it's a fireworks show.
You need to win your division, I think, because of the way the NHL playoffs are structured. Is if you win your division, you get, depending if you're first or second in the Eastern Conference, you get one of those wild cards, and the Boston Bruins would be a much easier matchup. If they don't win their division,
Hold on a second.
Greg?
Let's check
Hold on
in
a
with
second.
Greg.
You
Hold
okay?
on a second.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
He tries to hide, and it gets worse, and then
Yeah.
it turns red.
Okay.
Let's just
Cough it out.
ride it out.
There you go. There you go. Get it all out.
See, this is the thing that like I was bitching at my dad on the way
done.
home on Sunday night. He's like,
For being sick.
no, we've normalized this. Like he's gotten to the point where he sleeps better now. I'm having a real moment right now. This is like something
Yeah,
I've
but
really
so
been
is
telling
he.
him.
Yeah.
No,
All
he's
right.
fine. I'm
No, but
telling you.
he's very stubborn. Hold on. Just let's calm down for a second.
Yes.
Let's not make fun of this because
No.
one of the problems is that
Are you okay, Greg?
Sorry.
that laughter causes this,
Yeah.
and we've been living with this in some form. I don't want to mean we, but for 3 years, and
Yeah, I've
He
just been
won't-
telling him. I don't think he tells his doctor, "Hey, I cough multiple times a day uncontrollably." I think he tells his doctor, "I sleep better now, so this is better than it was 3 years ago." And I get worried that he's not telling his doctor, and they're not doing all they can to stop this cough.
My doctor said my Lanta. No, I do. When I see my pulmonologist, tough word. I'm honest. I'm always honest with my MDs.
look,
Why wouldn't I be?
we fool around.
McGillicuddy.
No, we fool
Thank you.
around a lot around here, but you're not honest with yourself sometimes, and your medicine might be causing something that's not a normal coughing outburst too regularly, allowing you to sleep better. But now I'm diagnosing you on air.
I gotta trust his doctor, Dan.
No, I'm not. I trust his
Yeah,
doctors.
McGillicuddy,
I'm not.
huh?
My dad is so stubborn, and he's always the king of "I'm fine, I'm fine." And I think when you get to his age and you're coughing as, like, look at that, what just happened to him. I don't think he expresses to his doctor the extent of how his day is affected by the cough. I think he's like, yeah, I cough sometimes, but it's better now. I sleep better. And the doctor's like, oh, good, it's working. I think he should go in there and be like, my life, 4 or 5 times a day, I cough uncontrollably.
Stugotz, I've told you about this, and this is a little more real than we intended to get this morning. But trying to wrestle the keys away from my father at 78 years old, like this stuff, he's not listening to his coughing, to his body.
Right.
So you want to win the division to avoid the Maple Leafs because they
Yeah,
really shored
right.
up that defense, and that's a nightmare matchup for the Florida Panthers. Best offense against the best defense. All of a sudden, a lot more pressure gets applied to Sergei Bobrovsky, who we all have difficulty trusting.
Yeah, them giving up 4 goals last night was not great. It was bad defense. But of
19
course, it didn't
Ah,
matter.
when you score 8, I mean, come
yeah,
on.
well, it didn't matter to a point. It was 5-4 at one point, but
But
not
that's
mattering.
isn't that the reason that you're scared of this team more than its history? Because 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago doesn't have anything to do with now. It's what you fear is, playoffs. Wait a minute, the outscoring of everybody. A lot of offenses can be special, and then gets to the playoffs, and that's a totally different. Everything gets dragged down, and now you're losing 4-3 or 5-3 because all of a sudden you've gone from 8 goals to 3.
We've seen it a bunch in that sport. There's a ton of first-round upsets with the lower seed, and there's a ton of high-powered offenses that go into the NHL playoffs and then all of a sudden get upset. So, and this is just a really good Eastern Conference. Tampa Bay is a really good team. You only have a 5-point buffer right now. It's well within reason, especially considering all the road games that the Florida Panthers have post-All-Star break, that the reigning, defending, 2-time Stanley Cup champions are going to catch up to the Florida Panthers. And if so, you have a really bad matchup against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then it'd be a rock fight.
It's starting to win more on the road now, and I think they're going to catch their footing away from home, and it's going to get a lot better away from home now. And
But Roy, Greg is right. They're 23-3 at home. They're 9-6-5
But why
on the
can
road.
you say that, Roy? You're saying it's going to get better, but based on what? Like, because you say so? Like,
Because he
what?
scored 8 in Columbus
in
last night.
Columbus last
Okay,
night.
but I
Like,
just
they've
saw.
been
I-
really good on both.
But
the
they
home
just
and
lost 5-3 to the Kraken. It like that just.
Yeah, but they
Kraken have our
lost
number.
3 out of
Yeah,
the
they have our
last, like,
number.
16
Bogey team.
games,
Yeah,
right?
and that was like Game 5 of a long West Coast jaunt in which they upset the Edmonton Oilers in a game that was, I think, Bobrovsky was unbelievable in that game against a high-powered. Well, Edmonton is 2 of the top 3 points getters in the entire NHL, and then Bobrovsky, I think he shut them out. That was an incredible performance. For whatever reason, the expansion Seattle Kraken have owned the Florida Panthers this year. I've been to one game this season at the FLA Live, and it was that Kraken game, and we scored 1 goal.
But Roy is right. They've won 4 out of their last 5 on the road. So
Yeah, that was the best
Right.
road trip of the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to get better because I say so.
One thing that
you're right.
that is under talked about, I think, is what they overcame early in the season with Quenneville all of a sudden having to resign in disgrace over the most unexpected circumstances ever. I talked to Bill Zito about this for a column a few weeks ago.
Take that name up.
Still emotional about it.
I mean, what? Seriously, they were 7-0. They're off to a perfect start, literally, and then the second all-time winningest coach has to resign in scandal. And Zito told me, which I think is totally true, some teams go off the rails when that happens. I'm not saying talent wouldn't overcome eventually, but they overcame the most unusual circumstance, the most trying circumstance possible. It was a pall over the team, and they overcame it. And I think that's one of the remarkable things about the season they're having.
I'm curious if that's just narrative, though. You're going to have to help me as somebody who is learning. Was their coach that important? Because they did hiccup for a
Apparently
minute.
not.
They did hiccup for a minute. They did hiccup right afterward, as would be expected if you're shocked by just learning those particular details, because I don't think those should be left out. Just some horrifying details that will shame him forever, that he was involved with that mess. That can linger for days and maybe even weeks, the shock of that. But then the hockey machine gets moving again, and plenty of people forget that it happened. And so I ask you genuinely, greatest coach ever, and what? Did he teach him it and then leave it behind? Because they just had the best month I've ever seen offensively in the sport without him around.
Right, but Zito told me one thing that genuinely surprised me. He said our most important game of this entire season was the first one we played after Quenneville left, because all of the interim coach is a fairly unknown guy, and if they lose that first game after going 7-0, they lose their first game after Quenneville is sacked, the whole narrative would have been, it's coming apart, and they won that game. I think they lost the next night, but winning the first game without Quenneville. The GM called the most important game of the season, and I believe him, because the narrative might have flipped there. But
I think that's narrative too.
Okay.
I think that is just like, hooray, we won the first game. The sting of it, maybe we were better than that team that night. I do think that kind of controversy can harm a team short term, but I'm asking all of you as people who know more about this team and this sport than I do, what did Quenneville have to do with what it is they were doing that he leaves and they just had the best offensive month the sport's ever seen?
Well, the biggest thing is, obviously they didn't go outside the organization for a new coach. They just promoted Andrew Burnett, and Andrew Burnett did not change anything with this offense, with this team entirely. Like, they didn't change any philosophy. He just kept it going. The only thing he had to learn was line combinations and ice time. That's it. And he seems to have figured it out, and now we are where we are right now with the Panthers.
I guess in kind of analyzing the job, you have to give him credit for what he's doing now, but I guess the question is this sustainable, right? And there's always kind of a lurking idea that maybe they should go out and get a permanent coach. This run of form has been so good that now you won't, but maybe heading into the future, this is not someone that you want to build around, but he's going to be afforded the opportunity to sustain because he has sustained so far. For 3 months, it's impressive what he's done.
But the reason I ask you the question, right, as in football, you see what's happening in football where, wow, really, after all of that, we're going to jostle back into place and the NFL might have 1.5 black coaches in the league? 1.5 black coaches in the league. After everything that just happened in this country, the power reasserts itself. When you talk about geography being responsible for opportunity, a coach basically just slid into the office next door and just said, okay, we can keep this machine running the same way, right? Same way. So where you lose a guy who's pedigreed from the past and you just had better, the machine's working better in January than it did under him because he.
They got off to a really hot start.
Okay, but in scoring,
wasn't sustainable too.
But what I'm asking you is this team growing? Was my question about January? Is this monster getting stronger?
Yes.
Is what I was asking.
I think it's hard to answer that, but I think there have been encouraging signs, particularly with the goaltending. In their improvement, Spencer Knight has put up 2 back-to-back really good performances. I still think you're going to need to lean on him in the playoffs.
They're really going to go into the playoffs with questions about which goalie to play. Like we're going to,
it's going to be Bob.
But I'm
Bob's
saying,
going to be given the
but
opportunity.
you've been advocating for.
If he gets hot, you stay with Bob.
I think it's inevitable in this postseason story that Spencer Knight's going to be called upon.
But you were calling for him last postseason after
Yeah.
Bob was bad last year.
Desperate times, Dan.
We had Driggs and we had Bob, and it was so predictable how that Tampa Bay series was going to play out. Is Bob's going to have it until he screws up, and Driggs is going to have it until he screws up. Then when we're most desperate, we're going to put in Knight. Knight has proven so far in this very short time frame that he's the best of the 3. Now this season, Bob had a real big bounce back season, and Spencer Knight slumped a little bit, but I am encouraged by the most recent Spencer Knight performances, and he's a high draft pick. He's the future of the position for this franchise, so I think he still has a lot of story to tell in the postseason.
He let a few in last night, but to be fair to him, he is right now towards the top of the NHL in save percentage. Like he's done a better job this season. He's won more games.
Talking about Bob.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, last night it was defense. It was a couple bad turnovers. There was a deflection in there, so it wasn't all on Bob. But 4 goals last night against Columbus.
What are we doing here? I know we're all conditioned to think the worst about our hockey team, but this is one of the best hockey teams in the league right now, and they're young and they're exciting.
I'm trying to figure out
the 2-time champion Tampa Bay Lightning are
I know.
chasing you.
I know.
Billy, I need to know. You will not have gotten this town behind you. I don't care how much attendance is at the game until you make Billy gaze into the eye of.
If the game's sold out, you don't need me at the game.
They need you.
They've sold all the tickets.
No,
They're fine.
How do we get you enthused? What does this team need to do for Billy to come over from a Heat game or a Marlins game and be moved and swept away in the magic of offense? What does this team have to do so that Billy wants to get in on the Whittingham, Cody, Roy, both Cody conversation of I want to get excited about my hockey team?
They're fine. I mean, there's one puck, Dan. They're going to pass it back and forth to each other. That's fine. I'm a role player. I'm not. This is.
What'd you watch last night?
Last night?
Yeah.
I was editing Stupidity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Time well spent.
What's on Stupidity this week?
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
very
not
good.
cares. It's not in the top 20.
No one
Who
listens
cares?
to it. Who cares? Fuck Stupidity, right?
Start of the day, start of the day, it is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day, it is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day, it is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day, it is your start of the day.
Courtesy of Hembo at Paul Hembo on Twitter. Over the last 15 seasons, when Andy Reid has an 18-point lead in the playoffs, his teams are 6-3. All other coaches, 58-2.
Stugotz is pleased with this stat.
I love it.
Because it rips Andy Reid. And I want to ask you something because this is a conversation we just had during the break where he read that stat to me because he wanted me to know it. And then I just sort of shook my head like, really, Stugotz, you still want to do the criticize the coach show in a sport where all the games are decided by 3 points. And yes, he had the team that we expected to win. And Stugotz's response was to spit at me. What? You wanted me to read stats. You want me to like stats. This is a stat, and this is a negative stat that smears Andy Reid, who we crowned 2 years ago because Kelsey wasn't that before Andy Reid, and that offense didn't look like that before Andy Reid. Kelsey was good. That offense was something that exploded.
Yes.
And they created it, and it looked different. And in the sport where it's survival of the fittest, everyone evolves, and then quickly we saw other offenses look like that. And now we're back to criticizing Andy Reid. At some point, the game is gonna pass him by. But the thing that I wanted to ask you about, because last night on display, I thought were two things. You rarely get to enjoy greatness that's historic, greatness in sports like you've never seen, and appreciate it appropriately in real time. And there were two things from yesterday that made me think about this. Tom Brady, when he retires, basically what's happening right now is a giant negotiation between everybody on, hey, if Tom Brady's going to retire, this is going to be a big seismic sports event, right? For his brand to springboard him into whatever the next thing is beyond Breeze and whatever else in broadcasting. Brady's going to want to win wherever he's going. He's creating good content now with Gotham Chopra, where his podcasts are rising because people want access to a guy who's showing you a little bit of his life who never has.
Two things. Today is Tuesday. And also, Andy Reid drafted Travis Kelce. There was Travis Kelce was a quarterback in high school. He went to, I think, Cincinnati. He was drafted in the 3rd round, but there was no Chiefs career for Travis Kelce prior to Andy Reid. Andy Reid brought him to Kansas City.
So he wasn't good before Andy got there.
I guess.
To your point.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
to Dan's point, but
Yes.
it's not like you had a different coach.
No,
and a
my
different system.
point, I'm sorry. My point was that Travis Kelce wasn't a super. We saw him grow into a superstar. He was years in the league, and based on what's happening in the precision of that sport, where if Cooper Kupp plays enough with McVay, they will figure out the rhythms to turn Travis Kelce into a tight end who leads the league in receiving yards. That's something that Andy Reid gets credit for. Even if you want to start parsing, Belichick deserves this credit, Brady deserves this credit. And you can criticize Andy Reid, but I'm talking about the celebration of greatness in sports because it got summoned yesterday by the trash talk as well of Kevin Porter Jr. on Steph Curry, where Steph Curry scores 21 of the last 40 points in a Golden State game because he's basically pissed off and says, because the rhythms of the season are hard, even if you're that kind of great. And when Steph didn't say anything to him, but Kevin Porter Jr. was in his face like, I want your stuff, like that. I imagine we don't have this in our workplace. Imagine if any one of your colleagues talked to you the way that Kevin Porter Jr. talks to Steph Curry, who's great in that situation. But we're watching two guys right now. We're getting to see an eternal game-changing greatness, and it's still alive in front of us. It has not yet retired. And I want to ask you about what Brady's doing, because I'm not sure he's decided. I'm not sure that Adam Schefter didn't jump the gun here, and I'll tell you why, Stugotz. This is my reasoning for it. I've told you before that athletes at the end of these long seasons, in football specifically, if you ask them the day after the season ends, do you ever want to do that again? The answer is no.
Right.
Like, that was awful to my body and my mind and everything. If you ask them, Gronk just said this. If you ask me today if I'm going to retire, I'm retired. Don't ask me today. And that's Gronk. That's meathead Gronk.
But even Brady,
I think that Brady says, I'm taking this day to day, and when I tell you it's day to day, this is a family decision. He's shown you into this window of his life, Stugotz. His wife has wanted him to retire for a long time. He's talked for a long time of this is a family decision, and every year Daddy needs to keep going back because, man, this was the thing Daddy was made to do. But it's hard.
every year Daddy's making it to the Super Bowl.
But it's hard. It takes Daddy away. It takes Daddy
I know.
away. And he's showing you more and more, like, I want you to see my life. Look, I'm not doing a Manning cast. And I'm not doing Drew Brees, and I'm not doing Tony Romo. I'm going to be LeBron in retirement. I'm going to be Kobe in retirement, where I'm going to grab the content, and I'm going to make it for myself, and I'm going to make it with Gotham Chopra, and I'm going to show you more and more of my life, and I'm going to try and win over there, too. I'm going to compete over in the world where LeBron is, where content is now king. And I don't know if you'll buy it or not, but there's going to be, when's that documentary? Are people going to eat up the pieces of whatever's coming down the future of 40 parts, Tom Brady, a conqueror across sports, better than any winner we've ever had? Because if Jordan got that, Tom Brady in a more difficult sport to do it, you can make the argument that Tom Brady has replaced Michael Jordan as our greatest winner.
I'd agree with that.
He won 32% of the available Super Bowls to him.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. Greatest winner.
What do you imagine that's going to look like? I know people are tired of Brady, and he takes your respect begrudgingly, and many of you want him to go away, but I don't think that he is going to allow anyone else to dictate the terms on when or how he decides, and you have to have your stories lined up. When a machine of that size is going to retire,
Right.
you've got to have your stories lined up. That doesn't happen usually one day to the next.
I'm not certain what he's going to do. I'm not certain he's made a decision, but a lot of people are saying he'll make that decision, whatever it is, if he retires after Friday, because there's $15 million on the line. I mean,
that's been kind of poked holes in. Like, he can say he's retired, not actually put in the paperwork and still get the bonus. Local beat writers are trying to deflate that notion that it's all on this Friday deadline. But I'm personally, as a sports fan, I'm just not ready to see Tom Brady go. I kind of feel like I've only just started to truly appreciate his greatness.
It's crazy. I mean, he's retiring, if he retires, after a season when he led the NFL in touchdown passes and passing yards. The most surprising thing about that ESPN scoop to me was that there was not a shred of equivocation in it. I kept waiting for the line.
Isn't. They're still holding the line.
I kept waiting for the line, barring a change of mind. That's normally the hedge that you see, even in a scoop like that. Barring a change of mind, he's done. But there was none of that.
it's funny. We're talking about Adam Schefter, perhaps the most credible reporter out there, and
Stugotz
Jeff Darlington, who was in the
Yeah.
Tom Brady camp, who
Right.
told you that Tom Brady was leaving the Patriots and going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and yet no one believes it.
This is what I ask you guys, okay? Because we've been talking about this in some form, trusted news sources, for about 2 months now, as some of the stuff on how Schefter gets his information comes out into the light and makes us all a little uncomfortable. I'm asking the audience and you, because Stugotz, you went to that reported detail, and a lot of people do. They're just shrugging their shoulders and saying, nah, it's a money play, which I don't think Tom Brady needs the money. I mean, his wife...
and it's still $15 million.
But his wife makes more than he does. Like, you can fall there if you want. If you want to trust the reporting and you think the reporting is 100% accurate and you don't change your mind on anything you've seen the last couple of months on how that information is gathered, is fine. But the source himself is telling you, hey, this is a day-to-day thing, and he's shown you enough of his life in these documentaries recently, Stugotz, that are pretty damn honest, where I'm like, it might be a day-to-day thing with him, where he's trying to talk his wife into, come on, honey, one more year. Come on, one more year. Let me do it one more year. And that is possible that they have not decided, and Adam Schefter might not know.
I agree with that. You could also have a scenario where Tom wants to retire and the family's flipped on him and said, hey, you're playing at a very high level. You love this game. It's part of your identity. Go back out there and do it.
Given what we know about the situation, that would also appear to be like the least likely.
You never know, though.
Given what Tom Brady says, his family has been pushing him for this, but he almost came back on the – well, he did come back on the Rams. It took one of the greatest throws and catches in NFL history to eliminate him at home. Otherwise, he would have had another one of these 28-3 type comebacks.
And what a great bleep you to know I'm not ending my career in the cold at home with the Patriots throwing a pick six. No.
Yeah.
No, bleep off.
I did it without them. And look, they got really hurt towards the end. They got some guys back for that game against the Rams, but they were obviously playing hurt. That was a shell of the team that was firing on all cylinders. That's a Super Bowl favorite.
They'd be one of the favors again. Like, it's a real. If he
He's still very good.
He's losing Godwin and Antonio Brown at the same time. Two of his best three receivers disappear.
And offensive line, that defense took some hits.
Exactly.
Oh, and they beat
Leonard Fournette was injured.
And they beat the Rams at home if they have their offensive line. They beat the Rams at home. They don't lose by 3 points. They don't. That pressure would not have been what it was. I mean, Aaron Donald, yes, can do that to anybody, but they were missing 3 offensive linemen. You saw what that did to Mahomes in a Super Bowl. And Brady's still playing at the end. You guys tell me, you guys think it's done? Because I'm willing to wonder if Adam Schefter and Darlington are sweating the way Mike was when at 4 a.m. on Mario Cristobal. He knew it was done. Mike knew it was done. Had 100% confidence, and then something came in that shook his confidence at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's a scary thing to be out there alone with that kind of news.
That's why I say they should have snuck in that phrase, barring a change of mind, because then they can say what we wrote was, at the time, 100% accurate. He changed his mind.
Can't they
but
say
they didn't
that?
do that.
Can't they say that if he does indeed change his mind?
Not
At
what
the
they wrote.
time,
That's
that's
not-
what I was told.
That's not what they wrote.
Kind of chasing clout a little bit too. Is like, what kind of a report is Tom Brady is leaning towards retiring? It's not as definitive as on your lower third. Schefter, Darlington, Brady to retire.
We have lived this, okay, Stugotz? You have been doing this job long enough to have seen what I'm saying right now be the absolute truth. Stephen A. Smith came on with us after reporting that LeBron was going to Miami. And right before the decision, right before LeBron James announced it on television, Stephen A. sent out a tweet that hedged his bets and said, stuff is happening. It was a bullshit tweet. Like, it was, stuff is happening. Just to hedge the bet a little bit, like, I'm hearing things. And just to hedge the bet a little bit. And then he came on with us afterward and said, I will never do that again. Mm-hmm. I was so scared of my credibility taking the hit that I will never do that with a news story again. He wasn't saying the part of hedging, of reporting it is what he said. I will never get into the mix of that and feel the discomfort of that. If Stephen A. Smith feels like that on LeBron James, and everybody was worried about that. Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and Pat Riley and Mickey Harrison were worried that LeBron might change his mind before,
You were worried.
before
Yes.
walking to the set. I kind of believe that this might be a really difficult decision to wrestle to the ground. Like, that the family love, can we get Daddy back? But Daddy loves this so much, and Daddy can win again. When is Daddy ever going to stop? Daddy's losing years at home. You're not watching, like, what? Because this is consuming. Stugotz, he's gone.
Right.
You cannot be great as he is great and be present at home. It's not, there's just no room for it.
Greg, I do wonder, his kids are 14, 12, and I think 8 or 9 now.
Yeah.
Like, they're getting old enough where they could start having conversations with Dad. Like, hey, Dad, you're the greatest quarterback ever. This is really cool. Don't stop. My friends really like me. I don't want it to end. I'm appreciating this.
Stugotz of kids right now, I think it'd be the opposite. Dad, we want you home.
No, come on.
The Stugotz
14-year-olds don't care if you're home or not.
They
man.
want to watch Dad on TV.
A 14-year-old wants to watch their dad play, I think.
Yeah.
Unless he knows he's in this incredible pain. You don't think a 14-year-old wants, like, you think a 14-year-old has the perspective of, I want Dad around more?
I have no idea what the 14-year-old thinks right now.
We're just saying a hypothetical 14-year-old.
I know
We're
what
not-
I
Right.
would think if I were magically plucked into Tom Brady's family. I'd be like, yeah, let's ride this shit out. This is amazing. But also, I don't know what Tom Brady's doing. Like, he's 14, going away to college in a couple of years. I want to be super present for these last few years before that.
I got to tell you, there is nothing like the encouragement of a child.
No.
And if your 14-year-old walks up to you and says, Dad, you love this thing. You're the greatest ever at this thing. We're fine at home.
But what if they say
Continue
the opposite?
on.
But what if they say the opposite? Dad,
I don't know.
okay, well, that's not about Dad.
No,
that's not about the kid anymore. That's about Stugotz just wanting Dad to play. Like,
Stugotz, think about your
I
14-year-olds.
want my dad to be Brady. I mean.
Now, 14-year-olds are a bit yappy. That's when the hormones start. 14's the perfect time to keep going to work and stay away from the kids. Come back at like 18 to 20 when they start figuring things. 14, that's not the time that you want to spend 24 hours a day with a kid.
Yeah, I can tell you from experience, Christopher at 14 was a lot to handle. That was not an easy parenting age. I don't think it's the kids in Tom Brady's ear. I think it's Giselle. If I'm speculating, which I am, it's Giselle. Tommy, we don't need the money. Retire already. Why risk a serious injury playing at 45?
but she's been saying that to him for several years now, by his own admission. She's been saying that. Why now? I'm just asking you guys. I'm asking everybody. And Tom Brady deserves this at the end, still to be a part of the conversation. If he's going, is he coming?
He'll always be a part of it.
I'm asking you, any shred of doubt? Based on what I just presented in front of you, is Adam Schefter sweating? Is Jeff Darlington sweating?
I mean, Tom Brady himself just said he's day to day, and he hasn't made up his mind. Yeah, there's plenty of doubt now.
No.
And Schefter's sweating.
And Tom Brady has also put out there, man, he's being delicate about it, right? He's not ripping Schefter. He's just saying the information age. But Tom Brady's dad has put his name on the opposite, and I'm just wondering what I need to put in front of you guys, because Stugotz has gone from, Dan, don't you mention it, to, oh, it's done. Stugotz has flipped. One reported detail, Stugotz has gone from the guy who's carried the mantle of, be careful, Dan, I care about you, he's never going to quit, to now he's done. He's finished. This was a week ago. You've totally changed your mind.
Well, I believe in the reporting. I believe in the reporters. Certainly he could change his mind. It wouldn't shock me if he changed his mind.
But then would it damage the credibility of the reporters is the place I keep leading you.
You're not going to believe the next Schefter report? I'll believe the next Schefter report.
I will. I will too. But this one makes me doubt, is what I'm saying.
It's kind of weird what we do. Like, we have to see the result to know if in that moment, I genuinely believe that Darlington and Schefter in that moment had enough credible news to run with Tom Brady is retiring. And it's totally within the realm of possibility that Tom Brady changed his mind. Mm-hmm. But now we're just going to play the result.
But you've got a lifelong journalist here in Greg Cody telling you need the qualifier.
You need it. You have to. You have to have the qualifier, and I don't think it dilutes the scoop you had if you throw in the phrase barring a change of mind. You have to have that. But coaches and players lie. They lie right to your face. And the fact that Tom Brady now says, oh, it's day-to-day, I haven't decided, doesn't necessarily mean that's the truth.
But, Greg, help me out with this, all right? You do this for a living. Dan does this for a living. If at the time you report the news, you don't think he's going to change his mind, then you just report the news, right?
Right.
Without qualifiers.
Yeah.
So I believe in Darlington and Schefter. I'm not saying he won't change his mind or hasn't changed his mind, but at the time, I believe Darlington and Schefter thought he was going to retire.
I agree with you. When Brady's own company, TB12, after that scoop came out, when TB12 has all his career stats, like a career epitaph, that's pretty much confirming I'm retiring. And then after the fact, he's pissed off that he got scooped on his own news. And so, of course, he's going to play it like that. He wanted to make a big news conference post-Super Bowl when everything was done, spotlight's only on him. He's making the big announcement that nobody has heard before. And that's what he's trying to recreate, is that drama.
That would make more sense to me than Stugotz's money deadline if he waits until after the Super Bowl because of whatever, respecting the game and all that stuff. My guess is he doesn't love taking some of Ben's shine either, the way that fraternity ends up working. Can you get for me the sound, Mike, of Chris Russo yelling about Tom Brady's father? Because Tom Brady's dad has put his name on my son is not retiring.
5 years from now, he's going to take all of Ben's shine. I mean, if he indeed retires. I mean,
that is correct.
That Hall of Fame ceremony will be all about Brady, nothing to do with Roethlisberger. What happened? It's a mouthful. Burger.
Shut the hell up! Shut up! Keep your mouth shut! Your son got nailed. Keep your freaking mouth shut. Framegate my shut up! Stay low! Shut the hell up, Framegate. You mean, are you kidding me? Come on, the guy cheated, folks. Let's be honest. I got to listen to Tom Brady's old man now, who, has lived in the bubble, and has lived under the scenario where his kid's been a phenomenal player all this time, and now he's trying to disparage the guy who spent 246 pages writing about it. Shut up. Put that guy on. See if he's got the guts to talk to somebody who's going to ask him a tough question. Go ahead. Better yet, put his son on. Let's see what he has to say. Put your son on. Don't hide. USA Today. Come on. Come on, talk shows. Hey, come on now. Come on right now. Say that to me. Say that to anybody. Say it to somebody.
I just love the combination of shut up, don't talk, to escalating to say it to somebody. Do the opposite of shutting up is one. I mean, it's a symphony. It really is.
It's perfect.
Of sports radio gasbaggery. But he's also descending the way I am, and I'm hesitant to make fun of this because Lord knows I've been getting more names wrong than I've ever gotten wrong. But here is, courtesy of Mad Dog Sports Radio, Chris Mad Dog Russo getting wrong the name of one of the most famous people on earth.
And Leonard DiCaprio at a football game. You got to be kidding me. Leonard DiCaprio? Leonard DiCaprio. Really? Good actor. Not bad. Another guy. He wouldn't know Norm Van Brocklin. Oh, my God. What a disgrace. We'll take a timeout. We continue. Quarter after the hour, we're on Mad Dog Unleashed.
Norm Van Brocklin.
let me let's get that. Let's get that again. Let's play it again, just so I don't know what's a disgrace. I'm not
Everything
sure.
is, according to Russo.
I love the reset at the end.
He's the best.
Is the disgrace that Leonard DiCaprio has never heard of Norm Van Brocklin?
Therefore, cannot attend a football game.
And he's a pretty good actor, according to Chris Mad Dog Russo.
That guy.
Norm Van Brocklin played quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams from 1949 to 1957.
Put it on the poll, please, Guillermo, at LeBatard Show. Is Leonard DiCaprio a disgrace? Because he's never heard of Norm Van Brocklin. And also, is Leonard DiCaprio a disgrace because he shouldn't be at a football game?
And Leonard DiCaprio at a football game. You got to be kidding me. Leonard DiCaprio? Leonard DiCaprio. Really? Good actor. Not bad. Another guy. He wouldn't know Norm Van Brocklin. Oh, my God. What a disgrace. We take a timeout. We continue. Quarter after the hour, we're on Mad Dog Unleashed.
That's the best.
I like this.
Quarter after the hour.
If you're a Rams fan, you're not allowed to get into SoFi Stadium unless you're able to identify Norm Van Brocklin.
By the way, how does he know that Leonard doesn't know who Norm Van Brocklin is? I mean,
Norm left us in 1983.
oh, wow.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Good actor. Not bad.
Put it on the poll at LeBatard Show. Should you be allowed to watch the Rams from inside the stadium if you don't know who Norm Van Brocklin is? The part that I want to hear one more time, please,
Man,
because
most of those Rams fans don't know who Matthew Stafford is.
that's right. That's absolutely correct. I just want to hear it again because I don't believe that anything has diluted the word disgrace more than an indignant Mad Dog Russo saying that Leonardo or Leonard DiCaprio going to a football game. Like you have officially rendered the meaning of the word disgrace. You've neutered it. If you think if your outrage is directed at an actor went to a football game, the word means nothing. You've gotten to the place in sports radio where you have used it so often
it's
that
a crutch.
you have rendered it totally meaningless.
And Leonard DiCaprio at a football game. You got to be kidding me. Leonard DiCaprio? Leonard DiCaprio. Really? Good actor. Not bad. Another guy. He wouldn't know Norm Van Brocklin. Oh, my God. What a disgrace. We take a timeout. We continue. Quarter after the hour, we're on Mad Dog Unleashed.
I like the idea of Dog being outside the stadium as fans walk in and asking them, do you know Norm Van Brocklin?
Well, Stugotz, I do think that we need to turn this spotlight a little bit on you here because I'm afraid that
What happened?
you don't know the ways that you're aging like Mad Dog Russo. So yesterday, when you don't know anything about Ozark, it's enough with Ozark, and it's all you've got. Yeah. You don't have anything else. And then yesterday, I think it was clear to all that you've never heard a syllable of Joe Rogan's podcast. But you had an opinion on it that was stronger than any of us here.
I've heard a few syllables.
I don't believe that you have ever. We were just
half
talking.
Of one episode.
I don't believe that you can download. You know how to access it.
Oh, man. This has to do with the Starbucks mobile app yesterday, right?
Show me your phone. Do you even have Spotify?
I don't know. Let me see.
I love Spotify.
How do you listen to podcasts?
I don't believe he does.
I don't.
I don't believe that he does.
You've told so many people that you listen to their podcasts.
I lied.
I don't think he knows how to download a podcast. Does Greg Cody know how to download a podcast?
He listens to
his own.
It's just if you have his garage, it's just his podcast
He's
playing.
top
My mom
20
makes fun of
because
him.
it's running all the time. That's
I
right.
go to this purple thing. I don't know. It's an app.
That's Apple.
So you don't have Spotify.
Maybe. Oh,
You know
some
how
new
to-
episodes coming in right now.
There you go.
Let's see. I subscribed to something. Cinephile just came out. Spit?
No, it didn't. That's last week.
Oh, I got it late. Sorry. How do I use this?
That means you have not opened your podcast app in quite
Thank you
some
for
time.
subscribing, by the way. Cinephile.
I get
Check it out.
LeBatard and Friends. I get the Daily.
How about Montgomery and Company?
I get that. LeBatard and Friends.
You get that off the Looking Glass?
I don't know if I get that. Look, and there's Rogan. How about that?
Oh, that's when's the most recent episode?
That's
He's a Spotify exclusive, so
April 3rd, 2020.
yeah.
Last time I listened. Good episode.
We weren't. I don't think we were harsh enough.
Get Eric Weinstein on.
Joe Rogan yesterday. I have my regrets because I've in the hours since I got new information. All these supercuts of Joe Rogan being kind of terrible, not even kind of terrible, just flatly terrible. So I probably wasn't harsh enough on Joe Rogan. And him spreading misinformation literally moments after putting that apology out there was another slip up. I thought he did present well in the apology, and I do kind of believe him that, I don't know why, but I kind of believe him that he's going to aspire to be better and try to balance things out a little bit more, and maybe that's enough, but wasn't harsh enough on criticisms of Joe Rogan.
Okay,
yesterday.
well, I don't know what happened that changed your viewpoint, because Stugotz was the one who was harshest around here on Joe Rogan, and I don't need to tell you that as we continue to grow further and further apart and head to the extremes on this person is awful and the name calling that goes back and forth, I don't even know how much mind changing you're doing as you talk right now. No matter how harsh you are or how favorable you are on Joe Rogan, that's changing the mind of anyone who's already listening to Joe Rogan for whatever the reasons are. I don't know that there is a word of anything that can be said here that is going to run off a lot of people. I may be wrong about this. Maybe Neil Young and music will end up bringing enough attention to this that it will require that kind of contrition. But I, too, believe that Joe Rogan, even as he's enjoyed some of this nonsense that I told you, has come to him unexpectedly. Because when I say a podcast where he wants to laugh with his friends, it became popular because the comedians knew that that was a place they could go and it would be funny. That is how it started to ascend before anybody else's podcasts were getting that kind of big. And he parlayed that into something else as a provocateur, as a guy who likes bouncing against the establishment. And he has done some irresponsible things since then with misinformation, but he's not a journalist. He's a provocateur. He's somebody who's interested in making a scene, I think, and also is curious and likes talking to conspiracy people. But it was like me doing the interview with Masvidal. When I'm doing Masvidal and he's doing QAnon, and I can't simply do whack-a-mole on all of the facts that he's got wrong in real time because I don't have a facility with politics that I need to have because he's hitting so many bad notes that, like Trump, you just can't keep up with the facts that are wrong and the lies, and that's what ends up being dangerous on Rogan, that he's in this spot where Jessica's saying yesterday he's got a greater responsibility, and I really don't know if until now he's known that. If he's known...
How does he not know that?
Because he's an entertainer and Fear Factor and everything else. I don't know.
You're really hung up on this Fear Factor thing.
You really are. Dan, just quickly, because we discussed it a couple of minutes ago, Adam Schefter has tweeted out that Tom Brady officially has announced his retirement. Schefter feeling better now.
We take a timeout, we continue. Quarter after the hour, we're on Mad Dog Unleashed.
Breaking news. ESPN now gets to celebrate.
It's the biggest breaking news sign I've ever seen.
Re-breaking news.
Tom Brady did announce it himself on his Instagram.
There you go.
All that's what Tom Brady wanted to do, just so he could post it on Instagram. Just let Schefter have it. Like, what was these last 2 days?
I guess that little talk from Jack Brady didn't work. I mean,
He'll learn.
Little
We'll
father
see
son.
how many times, how many days he's there with his 14-year-old where he's thinking, you know what? Rather get hit by Aaron Donald than spend 24/7 with a 14-year-old.
Day to day.
Yeah.
That whole day-to-day thing was all bullshit. Come on, Tom. He's been the news story was correct, okay? And the after effect of Tom Brady denies and day-to-day and the dad. Somebody should write a story about annoying parents and annoying siblings and
they
relatives.
should.
And it's going to start with Brady's dad and Mahomes' brother. It's just ridiculous how these dads and son and brothers, they get their nose in the famous person's business. Stay out. It's like he said, lay low.
Nepotism.
Russo?
Yeah.
Odell Beckham's dad helped him, though. Helped his son. Yeah. He pointed out that Baker wasn't throwing him the ball.
Are you guys going to pivot effortlessly into ripping Tom Brady's dad and not acknowledge that I've just spent the last 20 minutes talking about how I doubted the story?
Yeah.
You guys aren't going to make fun of
You
that?
doubted journalism as a whole, it sounded like.
Really? What a traitor.
Well, journalism's dead.
Where'd you come from?
I mean, I'm happy to make fun of you, but I'm also making fun of ESPN. It's the biggest breaking news alert I've ever seen.
But
It's all over the screen.
Now they've dominated the story. That is a pretty big
win.
story. They've dominated the story. They were out there for several days as Tom Brady's dad and Tom Brady denied it, but they denied it in a way that made me legitimately doubt it. As evidenced by the last 20 minutes before this.
What was the point of this? Like, why did they drag this out just for him to post it on Instagram with, like, you have to slide, like, 5 slides to see. There's no video. There's nothing special.
Right.
Why didn't you just say yes the other day? You didn't wait and make the $15 million. What was the point of dragging this out until today?
Wait, Fox is live right now, so Tom Brady says final decision on retirement is day to day. We don't have access to this sound right here.
The A block has been set, and there's probably an undisputed producer sweating right now because they've got the notification that Schefter says Tom Brady has announced on his Instagram that he is retired.
What do we do?
I would love to play this
Married to
sound.
this entire A block talking about, is it the end of Tom Brady?
But we just got stuck there and we're able to pivot. But I have spent the last 20 minutes talking about what a difficult decision this would end up being.
I kind of trust Undisputed more than Tom Brady on this. I got to be honest with you. On it being day-to-day, like, he feels like it now. But let's see once kind of...
Exactly.
Week 3 of training camp, maybe you start thinking, you know what? I could give this one more go.
I really don't think that we've talked enough. I brought this up yesterday about the news that Sean Payton called Drew Brees before that Dolphins game last season to have Drew Brees play, and how tempting that must have been to Drew Brees to play just one more game because you wouldn't have to do anything except a week of prep. I would imagine that would be pretty tempting, would it not? To just get out there one last time because you've been in the booth, even if it was 15 games ago.
Yeah, but I think first off, Mike pointed out he was playing golf, and that's tricky when you're playing
Well, I
golf
also
because
pointed
you have
out-
sunk into retirement when you were playing golf.
I also pointed out what a bizarre story to talk about several months after the fact when it was pretty well known at the time. Like, we could have done that show on Monday before that Monday night game against the Dolphins. It would have been great. But we waited until Tom Brady retired to discuss Drew Brady's unretirement.
Well, because yes,
Drew Brees, I'm sorry.
because Greg Cody is saying how great it would be if somebody calls him late next season and he's still day to day. You can't imagine Tom Brady coming back for anything, but you said you weren't ready for it to end, and now it's
No, he's
over.
still very good.
Now it's over.
Yeah, I believe
It's
it.
not over, Dan.
Right.
Dan, it's not over.
They're on it now. They're on it now.
I told you yesterday, I have to see him go an entire year without playing football before I'm willing to say it's over.
Right.
An entire year.
I'm
okay?
with Mike, though. There is a sadness to it. There is something of, like,
He's great.
I think I heard Eric Stone Street, like, I've loved to hate him and I've hate that I love him. It's like both.
No. Well, no, I think the bummer is, like, I disliked him and that franchise for so kind of long that I didn't properly start appreciating his greatness until he was a Buck. And then he was just doing things that were just so unprecedented, so wild for someone his age, so wild for anybody's age, really. I love the way that they played. Everyone was dinking and dunking, and he was like, no, 2 single high safeties, I'm going to go at them. Not take what the defense has given me. For one time in my career, I'm just going to be the aggressor. And he was put around like an incredible supporting cast. I'm really bummed that I don't get to see at least another year of it.
I don't know, and we've been talking today about the precision of words, Greg. You've covered sports all your life. I don't believe that we have the words that can frame what we've just lived with this person who has begrudgingly taken, no matter how you feel about him, all your respect, whether you wanted to give it or not. You have to extend it to a guy who told the league, bleep off, I'm not giving you my phone. You want to call him a cheater because of deflated footballs, whatever. You want to hate the Patriots across 20 years. That guy overachieved for his draft position more than anyone in the history of sports, climbed to the top of that sport, and now gets to retire at the very end, where you're not looking at it the way you were looking at it at the end with the Patriots, where this would have been anticlimax. He's retiring on top. Nobody gets to do that. Never mind at 44. Just period. He's still on top. Maybe somebody else wins a 3-point game. Maybe a bunch of guys get injured. Maybe someone else wins the title. This is as close to retiring as on top as you can get. It's
Last year would have been a bit better.
But it's Elway-ish. Yes, last year would have been a bit better, but
I'm going to push back on that notion. No, because he did it for another year at a high level. Like, he might be the MVP this season.
He should be.
So I don't think so. When you set the high watermark and you continue going and make that high water mark even higher, I don't think that's the case. And yeah, last year would have been, what's better than going through Breeze on the road, Rodgers on the road, and then beating Mahomes in the Super Bowl? Not much.
At home, too.
But doing it another year. Setting your records to an impossible height.
Brady almost single-handedly made the Miami Dolphins, Buffalo Bills, and New York Jets irrelevant for 2 decades, and there's not a rational fan of any of those 3 teams that doesn't just bow right now and acknowledge this guy's greatness. Awesome greatness. There's no hyperbole to describe Brady's career. It's one of a kind. It's beyond epic.
Mike, you left out Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, Green Lizard. I did that purposefully.
It's the toughest game for him.
I love the Green Lizard. But no, he did that mostly on the road. It was a weird. They were the road team at home. It was kind of odd.
It's kind of sad, even as a Jets fan, and Tom Brady winning that division every single year and causing me so much misery. I'm still sad, and it's the same feeling I had when Michael Jordan retired. I didn't want to live in a world where I couldn't watch Michael Jordan play basketball every night, and so I guess it's kind of sad, right? It's a sad day today.
Can I be the dissenting voice here and be absolutely thrilled that this is over?
Oh, come
because I have been rooting against this guy for my entire life, 21, 22 years. I've been rooting against this guy, including to his last throw, his last handoff to Leonard Fournette. I thought, I don't really care about Rams-Bucks. Wow. And then this guy, who's been tormenting my footballing life for 22 years, has a chance to pull off a 27-3 comeback, and every feeling that I've had of rooting against him came back. It's like, no, this can't happen. Wow. And I was thrilled when Matthew Stafford hit that deep bomb to Cooper Kupp. Like, I never let go of that feeling. I know he's become more likable the last couple of years in Tampa and not kind of being Patriots robot anymore, but I wanted this guy out of my life for so long, and I'm going to enjoy that he's out of my life now. Thank you.
But the Dolphins still suck.
I don't care. It's over. Thank God.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Do the Dolphins suck less today because Brady has retired?
Yes.
And I do think the greatest tribute in our silly little place that you can give this person is that he still stirs all of this from Whittingham, just all this emotion that he can still, at 44 years old, 6 years past anyone else, stir this kind of emotion in Stugotz. I don't have a whole lot of analysis that's been more publicly embarrassingly wrong than daring to question whether his deep ball had lost some accuracy.
He had a bad afternoon.
No, but I'm saying for 7 years, this guy has been, no, not yet, you're wrong again. Like, I haven't had a bigger, louder, more wrong than daring to question whether the accuracy on deep balls at 36 represented an aging process. That's damn near 10 years ago. And what I'm telling you is, in this climate of poison, of Stugotz will hate you and change his mind in a minute, and Whittingham will hate you across 2 decades.
20 years.
I say he's retiring on top.
Yeah.
He's retired.
You questioned his deep ball 10 years ago,
but this is better than Elway. Better than Manning and better than Elway at the end. They got to win titles, but they weren't as good at what Tom Brady was this year.
No, he was the reason his teams were good. He was the reason his team won a title last year. Dan, you're right. Mike, you're right. Like, he retired on top. It would have been better, perhaps, winning a Super Bowl, but he has more Super Bowls than any NFL franchise. Think about that. He has more than the Patriots, the Steelers, the Cowboys, the 49ers.
I think there's only one way to do this right now.
I think you're
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. He deserves it, man. Tip of the cap if you have one. Do a little tip of the cap.
Not doing it. I'm sorry.
Whittingham will not. Roy will not. For some
Sittingham
reason.
right now.
No.
Billy will not.
Brady?
Billy is up. Roy.
Not even a
Giants,
cap. Not even a
Roy.
tipping of a cap. No.
He should opt back into the Pro Bowl, right?
Roy's sitting.
All-time
because
QB
of
for
a
both
cap.
teams.
Exactly.
Roy's sitting because of a cap. That's all that is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're Aaron Rodgers, you have to consider Tampa, right?
No doubt. You think Gronk stays for Aaron Rodgers?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Does this mean that Gronk also retires?
Well, his brother said that he would retire. He
Yes.
wouldn't come back without Brady.
I believe him.
Yeah.
It's a Billy Gill exclusive.
Breaking news, stupidity.
God bless football. I don't know. Said it somewhere.
Ron, I want to tell people about this project of yours because I'm not sure you expected it to last 3 years, but I believe not just the Americas, but I believe America needs a new national wildlife correspondent. And you have been doing the show in Spanish here for 3 years now. You've been doing the show in Spanish that represents Spanish television's largest animal show, correct?
It's Spanish television's, produced for Spanish television's show, national show. It's basically, for those of us that are old enough, you remember Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. It's basically that show in Spanish. And I'm very lucky to get to host it, even though my Spanish isn't that good, but the show itself is fantastic. The images, some of the best, nature documentarians in the world captured images that are just mind-blowing in this series.
Do you guys want to do a top 5 list of people in America who have been known for, making the rounds as America's animal expert? Because Steve Irwin is in that category, even though he wasn't American.
I think you would say, Steve Irwin, Jack Hanna, Jim Fowler, Jeff Corwin. Those are guys that, have done a lot of documentary television as far as nature
Joe
goes.
Exotic.
Oh, come on!
What?
I would say, even though he's British, Sir David Attenborough deserves a shout for how popular the Planet Earth
Sir
series
David
is.
Attenborough is the god. He's
Overrated.
the best ever. What did somebody just say? Overrated?
Who would say that?
Billy said overrated.
I didn't hear
Billy
that.
did say overrated.
Billy, I don't know what kind of peyote you smoke, but brother, you are so off base on that comment. Anybody who's
Just
ever
his
worked
voice.
in nature presentation, nature
Peyote.
documentaries will tell you that Sir David Attenborough is the bar which everyone tries to reach.
You're better.
I'm not. I can't even hold a candle to that man.
I disagree. I have a question
Well,
for you, unrelated to this. Do animals? I just had to take Tums. I walked over to the CVS. I bought some Tums because my throat is on fire today. Yesterday I did Alka-Seltzer, didn't work. Do animals have
But
quick?
Tums don't help your throat, idiot. Tums are for your stomach.
Well, it's heartburn. It comes up through my throat. I also got cough drops. What? Yeah, idiot. I mean, Sir David
No, I'm sorry.
Attenborough would never.
I apologize for that. That was really harsh and that was uncalled for. And I'm a jerk for even saying that. I
Jeez.
apologize, Billy.
Your
You're
words,
not
not
an
mine.
idiot. You actually are brilliant in your own special way.
I don't know that you're making it any better.
Special.
Anyway, do animals have any quick fixes like that? Like they can go and like this helps me with indigestion or this helps me with this or that?
There are animals, primates especially, that are known to eat certain plants when they have an upset stomach. That makes them feel better, and a lot of indigenous people have learned from that. Indigenous people know certain plants to chew on, to eat when they have a stomach virus or they have an upset stomach. So certainly animals do know the medicinal properties of some plants that they do utilize when they get sick.
That they only eat when they're sick?
Yeah, pretty much. I think I can't say that I'm as well versed in this as I probably should be, but yes, they don't eat that as a normal part of their diet on a regular basis. But studies have shown that when they do get sick, they seek out that plant to consume it to help alleviate whatever discomfort they're feeling.
Are there animal doctors? What he's asking, like, are there animals that other animals will go to because they'll help them?
That's an interesting question. I don't think there are animal doctors. I think there are certainly animals that serve as mentors. In other words, in an elephant society, the older female, the matriarch, will show the young ones what to eat, what not to eat. Same thing with primates, chimps, gorillas. These young learn from their parents, from their older generations, on things that can best help them survive in the wild.
I want a little love for Joan Embry. How about that?
Yeah, you know what? You're right. You are so right. Joan Emery was one of the first. Well, let's say Joan was the first zoo person. Marlon Perkins was also the director of the St. Louis Zoo, so he was a zoo person, but he wasn't representing the zoo. He did Wild Kingdom. He went in the wild. Joan was the first goodwill ambassador for any zoo, and I use the term goodwill ambassador for what I do here at the zoo, modeling it after Joan. I met Joan when I first started working at the zoo, over 40 years ago. Was lucky to work with her on several television shows, and she is as nice a person as you could ever want to meet. Just saw her a couple of years ago. She recently suffered a stroke, but she's making quite a recovery from that, and she is just a phenomenal woman. She really is. Set the path for all of us in the zoo industry.
Ron, this only happens a couple of days a year down here in Miami where it gets this cold. Explain to people the phenomenon of iguanas falling out of trees.
Well, iguanas are tropical reptiles. Now, as reptiles, they're cold-blooded animals. Difference from mammals, which are warm-blooded animals. We're mammals. When we get cold, what do? We shiver, right? We shiver to try to keep our body temperature up because we keep a constant temperature of about 98.6. Reptiles, all cold-blooded animals, their body temperature is very similar to the ambient temperature around them. So reptiles, for instance, you don't see reptiles in the snow. No snakes, no turtles, no lizards in the snow. So these tropical lizards, which iguanas are, normally found in Central Tropical America, South America, when they come here, they do well until it gets really cold. When it gets cold, what happens is their body temperature goes down. And as their body temperature goes down, their heartbeat slows down. And they literally go into almost like a coma. It's a stunned type of suspended animation where they cannot function. Now, they will look like they're dead. And in all practical appearances, they appear to be dead, but they're not dead. Now, if they stay in that type of condition for an extended period of time, they will die. So what happens is these iguanas, instinctively, they go up into trees at night. And they go up into trees to get away from any type of predator that may be on the ground. A lot of things eat iguanas. So they're up at night. And then what happens is at night, if it gets really cold, as they shut down, the grip that they have on the trees, which they have, as an instinct to stay up in the tree, they lose that grip. And then all of a sudden they fall. And that's the raining iguanas thing, is these iguanas all of a sudden start falling from trees. When they get so cold, they no longer can hold on to the tree and they just fall in that comatose state. And people think they're dead, but they're not dead.
Do any of them die from the fall?
I would say it's extremely, extremely rare. I'm sure that they can get some physical injuries. They'll break some ribs. They might break a leg. But they more often than not usually heal from those things and go on their merry way afterwards.
They don't become prey the way that the rest of the animal kingdom does, because they're not quite indigenous here. So
they certainly can become prey. Animals like vultures. I've seen raccoons go after them that way. But generally speaking, that's a type of prey that's going to be adapted to by the predator. In other words, vultures are going to say, okay, that thing looks like it's dead, I'm going to start eating it. Or raccoon may try it. But
I just thought a broken leg. I thought a broken leg was fatal in the animal kingdom. Might as well be.
It can be. But, I've known a lot of animals that have that type of severe injury and survive. I've seen zebras, with the worst wounds in their rear end from lions grabbing them and biting a chunk out of their butts, and they survive. You see the scars on them later on in life, these huge scars with massive claw marks, massive chunks of flesh that have been ripped away, and they survive. So, there's a lot of luck involved in it, that's for sure.
Aren't some of these lizards invasive? Like, couldn't this be potentially beneficial if they get eaten?
Billy, it is. It is, and you're right. Iguanas are now considered invasive because not only do they destroy plants and gardens, but they also can compromise seawalls, compromise streets by the digging and burrowing that they do. So here's something that people might not realize. By law, if you get one of these frozen iguanas and you save its life and bring it back to life, you cannot release it back into the wild.
Wow.
You're actually breaking the law by doing that. Once these iguanas are taken out of the wild, they have to be either euthanized or permanently put in a place where they cannot get back to the wild. So you got to think twice before you do that, because again, by the book, you're breaking the law if you save an iguana and release it back to the wild.
So better to hit it with your car than save it.
Oh, Jesus Christmas. I'm not going to say that, Billy. I'm just saying.
You're not saying it, but
you're saying it.
It's not a crime if you accidentally run one over, where if you save it, you could go to jail.
You're not going to go to jail, but you might get a ticket. You might get a fine. I don't. Listen, I don't know of an FWC officer that's going to do that. I'm just saying that if he had to go by the book, it is illegal to.
Aplastado is what you're saying.
Aplastado. It is what he's saying.
Ryan.
Yeah, well,
Ryan, a lot of animals in the animal kingdom have camouflage. They have colors that surround themselves with the exterior area, but zebras are black and white. So can you explain the camouflage of a zebra?
it's not camouflage. Let me tell you what the zebra does. First of all, it's been proven that the black and white stripes deter tsetse flies, which of course bite, are miserable, and they bite, and they also can pass different diseases. And it's been found that that black and white pattern discourages the tsetse fly from landing on the zebra. But more importantly, zebras are found in herds. So when they're running in herds, and let's say a lion is going after them and they're all running, it's very difficult for that lion to isolate the zebra because all those stripes blend together. So it's a confusing type of coloration. It's not a camouflage to blend in with the environment. It's almost like a camouflage to blend in with each other. So it gets that element of confusion to a predator, like I'm chasing, oh, where'd it go? Oh, it's that one. No, it's this one. And that split second loss of focus on an animal can be the split second that saves that animal's life and enables it to get away.
Ron, I'm curious about something about you and your job, because you are a great ambassador and a great caretaker for zoos and animals. But when Greg Cody, and Greg Cody can't know that he's asking you that iguana question that we've asked you at 15 times over the years, when you answer it with the same enthusiasm as if someone was asking you for the first time, is that something you want to do or have to do as part of your job? Do you ever say, you know what, fuck off, Greg? That question has been asked 15 times around here, and Stugotz hasn't listened to this segment either in the last 10 years.
In Greg's defense, though, it's the first time Ron told us to hit them with cars. So.
Thank you.
I never said to hit him with cars,
I was
Billy.
hoping to bring that out in him.
That's the way I heard it.
Yep.
Stugotz, the way you hear things is just different than everybody else. But the bottom line is, I love what I do, guys. I really love what I do. And I love, sharing that information, because I think that's, if I have a job, is to connect people and get them to better. There's that old saying, and I've said it a million times. In the end, we protect what we love what we understand, and we understand what we're taught. I know, Billy, well, you obviously don't love iguanas so much. No, it's not. I want people to just connect and understand the importance of nature and why things are the way they are. I just love talking about it, guys. I'm not being fake about this. It's not something I feel like I have to do. It's what I want.
But you're also a teacher, and many people are hearing it for the first time, to be fair. Many people don't know that iguanas do all of that.
You're welcome.
That's what I was going for. But you fancy yourself, you are proud to be able to teach this because someone taught you once upon a time, and it helped further your interest in the animals.
That's exactly right. I told you, we talked about Jim Fowler in Wild Kingdom. He was my mentor. He was the one who took me under his wing 30-something years ago and taught me how important it was to be a storyteller. Guys, we've got to be good storytellers. We've got to engage people. We've got to get them to care. And I'm really lucky to be able to do that. And, without sounding patronizing to you incredible guys, to be having this platform that has so many listeners. I get emails, I get Twitter things every day from countless LeBatard listeners saying the nicest things you could ever imagine. And I don't know how it's going to sound I don't know how I got so lucky to do this, but I thank God for it every day. I thank you guys. You guys can bust my balls as many times as you want, because I am grateful and thankful to have this platform.
It's just amazing in 2022 that you would advocate in the middle of cancel culture for the flattening of iguanas and the killing of iguanas. But we do appreciate the kind words. Billy wanted to ask you something before, when Greg Cody was too busy asking you about iguanas for the 15th time around here. He wanted to ask you about Manny Puig, but didn't get in there because Greg Cody was asking you about iguanas for the 15th time.
Right.
Yeah, where do you have Manny Puig on your list of like American animal people?
Manny is an incredible, environmentalist. I think he loves wildlife. He's a great storyteller of nature. The guy, when you look at him, if anybody's ever seen him, Google him, the guy looks like Jesus ripped. He's just like a ripped Jesus. He's one of the best free divers I've ever known in my life. That guy can spend, 5-10 minutes underwater without breathing. He's amazing. The only thing I had a kind of a little apprehension with Manny is when he started doing that jackass stuff. That I think that kind of took away a little of Manny's credibility. I love Manny as a person. I think he's a great guy. I think he does amazing things. But when he started going that path, doing all the jackass stuff, I just thought it took credibility away from what he really can do and what he does know. Listen, those guys are entertaining. Don't get me wrong. I've watched the Jackass movies. It's kind of fun, but I don't know if I'd start associating myself with being a jackass.
10 minutes underwater.
You are on this show every week.
Whoa. Hey,
Point well taken.
Ron, I want to ask you a question, and I pray that it's never been asked before. Scientists have come up with tricks to make transplanted burrowing owls feel like they aren't alone by playing owl sounds and scattering fake poop. And I wanted to ask you, are there other examples of fooling animals for their own good?
Greg, I'm sure there are. It's a great question. It's never been asked before to me. But I'd have to think of where we would do that. I mean, we fool animals, for instance, when we have to hand raise a bird of prey. We don't want it to look at our face because birds become imprinted on what feeds them. We want it to think it's a bird. So what do? We make puppets, hand puppets that look exactly like the head of the adult bird, and we put it in a box of mirrors. So all it sees is a reflection of itself. And then when the puppet comes in, all it sees is that head of the puppet. So as it gets older, it relates the head of the puppet to the head of an adult bird. Doesn't, connect with people. It connects with the adult bird. So we use the puppets to fool them into making them understand what they are as opposed to imprinting on humans. But I'm sure there are many other examples where animals are fooled for their own good.
Thank you, Ron. We will talk to you again next week, sir.
Look forward to it, guys. Take care. Have a good one.
Something funny happened there with Ron Magill where he left off of the Mount Rushmore of greatest ever in the animal zoo, American fame, and outside of America, people who taught America about animals. He left the woman off the list accidentally, and I got to thinking about it because you guys were discussing a couple of things during the break. One of them is Stugotz was having the Mount Rushmore of winners conversation, and they were mentioning the names like Bill Russell, and they're saying Tom Brady and Michael Jordan, and I was wondering to myself, I wonder if Serena Williams would be allowed on the carving of a mountain that has been dedicated to men and winners because of how she has dominated her sport. But it wasn't as interesting as the other conversation that Stugotz and Cody were having, which was the following. Stugotz lamented that Tom Brady was retiring and allowing George Blanda to keep the record of most passing yards after the age of 45.
He still has it.
And Greg Cody chimed in with, I remember George Blanda. He both was the quarterback and the place kicker, and it got me to thinking how great it would be if Tom Brady was also that. Like how weird and great it would be I think the only way for someone to surpass what Tom Brady has done in that sport is to do it as George Blanda, to do all the winning and also like be Vinatieri.
Play some special teams.
Doing of both
How about being a
jobs.
gunner?
George Blanda talk is something that I don't believe anyone else is doing today off of the Tom Brady retirement.
Now, as Dan mentioned, Blanda's record is secure. He has 116 passing yards after the age of 45.
Oh, wait a minute. Brady might come back just to get that.
Seriously.
Once somebody
Once he
informs him,
realizes.
it's a half, it's
Right.
a quarter, it's a couple of passes. Wait a minute. There's one of these I don't have. I want Blanda. Somebody's going to inform him of this. He's going to fall to his knees. I want to play some sound here for you, Stugotz, and I don't know if it'll be as good as the video. The video's moving. Tom Brady has been a robot over 20 years, just a robot. Publicly, you don't get much of anything. He's shown you later in life, he's shown you some documentary glimpses of his life. But this is such an innocent, heartfelt moment at a Super Bowl where Tom Brady, was that Trent Dilfer asking him the question with a kid on his shoulders? Was it Trent Dilfer's son on his
It'd be
shoulders?
awkward if it wasn't.
Okay, I didn't know who the kid was. I didn't know whether it was a child journalist of some sort.
It was Brad Johnson's son, and Trent Dilfer was just hanging out with him that day at Media Day.
And let's play the sound. Is this going to work as audio, Mike? Because it's video, it's moving.
Man, I'm really going to undercut this sound. No, it doesn't work as just audio. You need the video to see the emotion on his face. So I'll do my best to say that he is overcome with emotion and you could see it on his face. It even moves.
Dying to ask you a question. He's a Panini Kid reporter. It's a good question, too. What's up, Joseph? How you doing?
Good. Many people say you're their hero, but who's your hero?
Who's my hero? It's a great question. Good question. Well, I think my dad is my hero because he's someone that I look up to every day. And, my dad.
That silence was the emotional part. You can like see the tears starting to like get in his eyes.
Should be Blanda.
And I apologize for being such an asshole. That was a random kid that Trent Dilfer put on his shoulders, apparently.
Weird.
Okay, so it wasn't his son. You really shamed me for just assuming that maybe it wasn't his son.
I maintain my point that it's odd.
It's a good life rule for Mike to have.
It is odd. He's
the
right.
kid reporter on Radio Row. You know, there's
It's
always
Super Bowl
one.
Media Day. All kinds of weird shit happens at Super Bowl Media Day.
Yep.
Look, I said what I said.
I back you.
Does the audio work? Just as audio? Because I haven't seen a whole lot of public glimpses of Tom Brady emotion that aren't yelling, adrenaline, joy. I have not seen a lot, and I have not watched much of the stuff that he's doing with Gotham Chopra. But I have not seen inside the Tom Brady emotions, and I'm sure it's corny to most of you, but that seemed like an honest glimpse into a pretty innocent thing where Tom Brady loves his dad, and his dad was yelling at everybody the last couple of days, putting his name on, this isn't true, because he wanted his son to retire his own way, evidently. And evidently the initial reporting by Adam Schefter that included that Tom Brady didn't want to take attention away from the championship round games. It seems like this was the plan all along for Tom Brady to retire right before Super Bowl week and the empty week if he could keep it quiet.
He's the story this week, when the NFL needs a story because there's a bye week. So this would be everything we know about Tom Brady and how he's conducted himself during his entire career. Maybe he didn't want to take shine away from the championship games over the weekend and do it this week where there is no game. There's a Pro Bowl. That's it.
It is pretty rare, I would say, for a guy who had a MAGA hat in his locker and had a cheating scandal to basically get to retire in a way that is publicly clean. Like, even with a cheating scandal investigated by the NFL, I don't think that people listening to this think of Tom Brady as much of anything other than a pillar of professionalism and excellence. Like, it's not like, and what are the stains? Mike loves to grab his hair plugs, but there aren't a lot of places where it is.
I would love to grab them to see exactly how he did it because dude got a bang-up job.
We're reaching in terms of criticizing Tom Brady.
It's hard.
You have to go to the hair plugs.
And it is so early,
Right.
and yet I have never seen an outpouring over a football retirement like this.
Crazy.
But Stugotz, you said we're reaching for criticisms. Like, there were a lot of criticisms along the way. He's just made himself more likable over time by being more of a human. But in those moments, in the Deflategate thing, in the MAGA hat thing, like, this is not a well-liked guy for a vast majority of his career. I don't think it's reaching.
Oh, but he'll get the wonder and the grace and the mythologizing of the eulogy.
Right. He muted it with sports excellence.
He just shuts everybody up.
Yeah.
It's winner forever stuff.
And his eyes.
That move in that face morphing video, I don't understand it. The placement of the eyes has moved. I think with the Deflategate in particular, that was brushed aside quite quickly by his on-field greatness. He won another one with New England after that. He obviously won one with Tampa. And I don't know if I'm doing some BS rationalization here, but he was obviously friends with Donald Trump before he became candidate Trump, and I think that hat was in there while he was candidate Trump, and he did distance himself. He didn't insult the man in the public, but he never weighed in politically. He was supporting his friend, then candidate Trump, and that stuff stopped when he became the monster that he became.
This is a place, though, that if you want to find the criticisms, it's certainly the only one that lashed Michael Jordan. He had the platform for the entire time and didn't use it for much other than the advancement of his excellence. He didn't stand for much of anything other than I'm going to be football and family, and that can be enough. Like, he wasn't out here fighting for any causes.
Right. What was the line? Republicans buy sneakers too. So, but with Brady, the resume of accomplishment is so enormous that, you know, when you write his career obituary, everything is weighted. Nothing compares, even the scandals that peripherally he was involved in, nothing compares with 7 Super Bowl wins and the records.
You
Nothing.
don't get this, Stugotz. You don't get this ending. When I'm telling you that this is a better ending than the one that Elway got and the one that Peyton Manning got, to me, I'm saying it's better because he's retiring, didn't win at the end, and we're still like, holy shit, dude. Like, you could have been out there for MVP with a favorite again next year. You are not doing what Michael Jordan did with his late 30s, which is Michael Jordan could have had the perfect retirement ending on a shot and then went and played for another team and, you know, did some things with the end of his career that a lot of people thought diluted some of what his career had been before that. You can't even file that claim on Brady. Like, he wins at the end. This is one of
He's the MVP.
But this is one of the great retirements of all time, too. He wins at the end with the retirement also, because it's not like we're saying, yeah, we saw what happened to Ben at the end.
Right.
He's washed. Like, it's not, nobody's saying that.
No, but he's done enough winning where you're right. He did not have to end it by winning a Super Bowl, which he did last year. He didn't do this year. He's still playing at a very high level. It was different with Elway. To end it on back-to-back Super Bowls, granted, he wasn't the same John Elway. That was a great way to end it. He had lost 3 and finally got 2 and ended it right there.
The way Brady went out was an anomaly. Think about it. Throughout sports history, it's almost like the greater you are, the tougher it is to leave. Joe Namath was terrible his last season. Willie Mays was difficult to watch playing center field his last season. Dwayne Wade is coming off the bench his last season. Going out like Brady did is absolutely a rarity in sports.
I'm curious what you guys think of this, because the other day, Stephen A. Smith got dragged on the 2-year anniversary of Kobe Bryant's death. He got dragged for using that platform to criticize other athletes, other black athletes. This is a criticism that gets lobbed at Stephen A. Smith quite a bit. Criticizing other athletes for not being Kobe. A lot of people were dragging Stephen A. Smith for that, and it got me to thinking about the way that the death of Kobe Bryant was so sudden and jarring that death allowed him to immediately apply for something that felt like sainthood, even though he had a couple of things that were really bad in his past, including not just the rape allegation, but also that, like Michael Jordan, he was kind of a jerk to people in the name of winning. Tom Brady is getting the sainted ending here without the need for thudding finality of his life. It's just his career that we are now, he will get to enjoy the next week of dominating the news, sports, saying, we respect you so much. Your greatness is not in dispute for anybody. You go in the pantheon of competitors. Like, they're showing a lot of black and white footage right now on ESPN because this is a historic retirement from a player who conquered for 20 years, was just continually defying odds as a 6th-round pick out of Michigan. Like, Stugotz, it defies explanation for that guy to be one of a kind. It doesn't even make any sense. Like, you could credit the coach and he just dismantled that argument. It doesn't make any sense for that guy to be immortal in a way that he gets to play 6 years beyond Roethlisberger. And we were all like, Roethlisberger, you've been spent for 2 seasons. And we can't file that on Brady. Like, you can say his teammates or the organization in Tampa helped him with those players, but he went and selected that team, and Tampa was nothing before him. They changed their quarterback and went from 7-9 to champions.
He's unlike any champion that we've ever seen in sports. He's done the most winning. I guess you can include Bill Russell in that conversation. The most winning, but we expected Jordan to be great. We expected him to be great coming out of North Carolina. He was selected top 3 in the NBA draft. No one thought Tom Brady. Nobody. Not even Bill Belichick. I'm not even certain Tom Brady thought he would do this.
There's never been anything like it.
That's half of the amazement of the Brady story, is that he wasn't the overall number 1 draft pick. He was drafted 199th, the 8th quarterback pick. 2 of the quarterbacks picked ahead of him were guys named Spurgon Wynn and
Spurgeon.
Stefan,
and Giovanni Carmucci, who I had never even heard of, but he was drafted ahead of Brady. Crazy.
I don't think it's Carmucci, but he's a sheep herder regardless.
What was his name?
Carmucci. I don't have it in front of me, but I think there's a Z in there. What is hard to recall now, because after Peyton Manning retired, Tom Brady won 3 Super Bowls, but it was like Bird and Magic. You couldn't discern who the greatest was of the era. That's why, like, Brady, in the years after Peyton Manning retired, just cemented, no, you say my name only. You don't say Peyton Manning with it. We saw Rivers wither away.
We now said Jordan with it.
We saw Breeze wither away. We saw Roethlisberger wither away. Hell, we even saw Michael Jordan wither away. We didn't see Tom Brady wither away. He left us wanting more.
So who's on the Mount Rushmore then, since you've been wanting to have this conversation your entire life? Mount Greg Moore. You get only 4. You get any 4 for all time, because Bill Russell has to be up there.
Well, Greg and I say there are 2 locks that no one would argue.
Yep.
2 locks, right? It's Brady and Jordan. Right.
But now you got to be willing to take either Kobe or LeBron down for Serena, which I think you kind of got to. But I'm curious whether the audience is willing to allow a female face on the Mount Rushmore of champion winning or not.
Like, are we talking champions or most talented?
Winners. No, just winners.
Because Tiger Woods should be on here, but he's not past Jack.
Winners
for
forever.
Right.
Winners forever.
Henri Richard won the Cup 11 times. So there's that.
How about Mike Eruzione?
What the great one?
What, Mike Eruzione?
What do you mean? Biggest goal in the history of hockey.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a difference
And they
between
won the
winning
gold,
and
even though they
being
didn't.
great.
That wasn't winning the gold.
What about Nature Boy Ric Flair?
Felt like it.
He still has a record for most championships.
And marriages.
Yep.
I don't think that is one of them. I'm like, let's do that. Let's do the Mount Rushmore of most marriages.
I think I read that they weren't actually
married.
Let's
go ahead. Let's go ahead.
Most marriages. Let's do
How
this.
can't they be
No,
married?
I read like that. No, they said separated. There's like all sorts of rumors
Let's
that they
do
never
that.
actually
The Mount
got
Rushmore
married.
of most divorces. Let's go ahead and do that. Is Liz Taylor on there? Does she have 9?
Oh, gotta be.
I think Hefner. Well, there was Hefner. How many times was he married? Was Hefner married a lot? I don't think Hefner was married a lot. I thought he was famously single a lot. You have Hefner being divorced a lot? Do I have this wrong? I don't remember it like that. We're going to get stuck here as we think of.
We gotta look this
we'll
up
find an
now,
easy
I mean.
list. We'll find an easy list of people who've been divorced a ton of times.
Someone in this room told me that Bobby Flay has been divorced 8 times. I'm looking this up.
No.
Billy Bob Thornton 3 times.
Okay, that's not in the conversation.
I think Flay is 3 times as well.
What did you just do? Google 3.
Most divorced celebrities.
I see 3 for Hefner. 3 marriages, and the rest have been girlfriends.
Larry King 6.
Oh,
no,
Larry King.
might be more than that. No, Larry King might be more. That might be an old list. What list are you looking at? I think Larry King is like the Tom Brady of divorce, where he had 3 more divorces after you thought he was done living.
Yeah, Flay looks like 3, so got a little catching up to do.
All right, we will put this list together and we will find what the Mount Rushmore of divorces should be.
Yeah, Wendy confirmed to People magazine that the pair's Florida nuptials, her and Ric Flair's in 2018, were never official, and that no marriage certificate was ever applied for.
Larry King was divorced 6 times. Mickey Rooney 7 times. So Mickey has the same amount of rings as Brady.
Richard Pryor 7.
Mm-hmm.
Mickey Rooney. Wow. I hadn't heard that name in decades.
We haven't mentioned a woman yet.
Yeah.
Zsa Zsa Gabor.
There you go, Greg.
Had 9 marriages.
Liz Taylor, we mentioned Liz Taylor.
Yeah, Liz Taylor.
Zsa Zsa. I love the Gabor sisters. Eva Gabor in Green Acres was fantastic.
Did you just criticize the age of another reference while referencing Zsa Zsa Gabor and George Blanda in this segment?
Right. And Mickey Rooney was another one that warmed the cockles of my heart.
Mickey Rooney physically, just to look at him was funny.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
We're going to have a spike in people Googling Mickey Rooney because he's left us like 3 years ago. I did not realize, or 30 years ago. I didn't realize that he had been married that many times.
Greg, where's Magda Gabor on your list of the Gabor sisters?
You know, she's the forgotten Gabor.
It really is.
Yeah. I mean, there were three. Eva was an actress of great renown from Green Acres, and Zsa Zsa was a socialite. She was like a real diva. Magda, you know, you just didn't hear about her. You know, some mystery there.
Like
Shame.
Cooper Manning.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
bad. Mm-hmm.
The Third Gabor will be the title of my next novel.
We found the Greg Cody wheelhouse. Look at how invigorated he is.
That takes me back to the Johnny Carson days when Joan Embry would be on.
Oh, great. We
once in
can
a while.
get your Johnny Carson impersonation again.
Ladies and gentlemen, Zsa Zsa Gabor. No, that was a fantastic time in television. Late 60s, the Gabor sisters were on all the time.
The best.
It was great.
Easier time.
Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney was tried out to be an extra in Wizard of Oz, and he didn't get the part.
Really?
Yeah, he was
Wow.
he was too big to be a munchkin because he was a man of small stature.
He was too big to be a munchkin.
He was too big to be a munchkin by,
Is this
4
real?
or 5 inches. Yeah, you could look it up.
No, I know, but is this real?
You saying you could look it up doesn't mean anything.
No. Mickey Rooney,
Yeah,
the forgotten munchkin.
This is his wheelhouse, guys.
He is. He's rolling right now. He's on a hot streak.
Never sounded so confident.
He's on a bender right now. You want to talk Gabor sisters and Mickey Rooney? Greg Cody's the
right.
man for you. We'd
Yeah.
be doing such a good show right now in 1970. George Blanda talk.
Yes. Exactly.
Are you ready to do your Back in My Day? How are you feeling about your Back in My Day today?
I like it. I'm not sure others will.
This doesn't bode well generally. Generally, this doesn't work out well for us, but we will try it. Are you feeling it's great that you had them 2 weeks in a row, so we're not going to criticize.
Right. I should lower the bar. I should say I really don't like this one. Hopefully people will.
But
How's that?
did you pivot off of today's news with Tom Brady and have to readjust anything as all of the news bends and shifts around Tom Brady?
Right. No, I don't.
Exactly.
I think over the years, I can count on one hand the sports-related back in my days I've done, so I don't want to start now.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. This is exciting. Greg Cody's Back in My Day.
And now, it is time to take a trip down memory lane. Here's your guide, Greg Cody, with Back in My Day.
Hood ornaments. One of my earliest memories is the first car I remember ever riding in. Wild Bill Cody's pride and joy was an old but impeccable 1955 Chevrolet Bel Air sedan. It was the era of the Sunday drive. The two things I remember, the car was the pale blue color of an Easter egg, and front and center on the hood, lying flat and forward, was that long and sleek chrome upwing bird. The hood ornament guided us like the prow of a ship as the Codys sailed along the open asphalt. Dad at the large wheel under a Sunday hat that I always assumed to be a fedora until one day he shared with secretive pride it was a Homburg. It's a long gone and nearly forgotten piece of Americana.
What are you laughing about? What are you laughing about?
The Homburg hat is, the fedora gets all the credit. Look up Homburg. It's a fantastic felt hat.
Okay.
It's a long gone and nearly forgotten piece of Americana, the hood ornament. It was born in the 1920s because radiator caps sat ugly on the outside of hoods then, and manufacturers soon began fitting on a decorative ornament to hide the radiator cap. Over time, the radiator cap was hidden, but the hood ornament remained. A piece of art, a sign of brash flamboyance, a point of prestige. The Bugatti dancing elephant, the Bentley flying bee, of course the Pontiac Indian war chief, and maybe the most iconic of them all, the Jaguar Leaper. The Bel Air's upwing bird was modest by comparison, not royalty, but it was still where the eye went first, frozen in flight, its stare hypnotic. Through the heydays of the 40s and into the 50s, these car mascots were brand-defining accoutrements of the automobile. Then something happened, as it always does. Times changed. For several reasons, the hood ornament was shunted by degrees into the attic of life. Art turned to artifact, and forgotten. It started when the radiator cap disappeared from sight and meant there was no longer a need to disguise it. Theft of hood ornaments became a plague as the chrome icons grew into prestigious fashion statements. And the death knell, laws to ban hood ornaments, began in Europe and spread to America over the increased risk of injury in the event of auto-pedestrian collisions. Then, too, increasing attention to aerodynamics and fuel economy branded the hood ornaments a detriment. So, to the graveyard went the Lincoln gun sight, the Packard goddess of speed, the Plymouth Flying Lady, Ford Greyhound, Dodge Ram, and yes, the upwing bird that guided our pale blue Bel Air through my childhood. Today, the hood ornament is gone like tail fins, and I don't include those garish steer horns you sometimes see on long cars on TV when they're trying to stereotype Texas wealth. No, the hood ornament unmistakably was chrome art, the car's John Hancock, and they are gone, but not quite extinct. Still found only on the highest-end yachts on wheels, such as the Rolls-Royce, with its enduring Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament. Alas, in a sad sign of the times, the Rolls ornament automatically retreats under the hood when sensors detect a collision and hides away when doors are locked to prevent theft. Detroit, Big Auto, bring back the beloved hood ornament. Let them be swept back into our lives like vinyl records. It's let them live again. Otherwise, let me dream again. Put me back in the seat of that 55 Bel Air as it crunches out the pebble drive of 1440. Put me on the wing of that sleek silver bird out front. I'm Greg Cody, and that's how it was back in my day.
Yeah.
I loved that one.
Winded.
I loved that one, even though your voice really just collapsed at the finish line.
It's a long one.
But it is an excellent one, and you just sent Witty to the internet.
I have in front of me the Amazon results for a Hamburg hat.
Nice.
And I want to show up in one. Probably won't get here for the next time that I'm here, but maybe on Monday. Next Monday, I want to show up wearing a Hamburg hat.
It's perfect for you.
It's
very
beautiful.
expensive, though.
Right, they are. Yeah,
Yes,
there's one from
yes.
Stetson that's $248.
I'm telling you what, Wild Bill Cody had it going on. Everybody else is wearing a fedora. What was the other hat of the day in league with fedora and Hamburg? The name of it was something like
Houndstooth?
No, Tilty or Listy or Filty.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Thank you, Billy. I
Yeah.
appreciate you contributing to the quicksand drowning. You're
Hamburg.
Tilly hats.
Yes,
There you go.
that was it.
Yeah.
What
Thank
distinguishes a Hamburg from your average fedora is there's a dent in the middle, and so it curves down rather than it just being a flat top.
Yeah. My dad was not a rakish man, but when he was underneath a Hamburg, it took on a whole new aura as well. Wild Bill Cody under a Hamburg. You know, it was a 55, but we weren't wealthy enough to afford a new car. So we were driving the 55 probably in 65. You know what I mean? I don't mean to imply that the Codys had any wealth because we didn't. But he could afford a Hamburg hat, which back then probably cost $5 at Sears and Roebuck. Then they got rid of Roebuck and the whole thing went to hell. It's true.
I know.
That was the decline.
Yeah.
My Aunt Nellie used to refer to that store as Sears and Roberts. She always she was like the Yogi Berra of grandmothers. She always had got names slightly wrong. So instead of Sears and Roebuck, which you always said back then, you never said Sears. You always said Sears and Roebuck, and she would say Sears and Robert or Roberts. It was great. Loved her. Nellie Doogie. That's it. I'm on a material. Nellie's Diner is named after her. I will say that. From the Greg Cody Show. One of our sponsors is Nellie's Diner, named after Nellie Doogie of Sears and Roberts fame.
Shame about that pork.
Yeah, it is. She died of diabetes, which she always referred to as sugar diabetes, even though it's an oxymoron. But her mother died of pork poisoning. What was it called? Strychnine? I don't think it was strychnine. No. And it wasn't pork poisoning. Nobody poisoned the pork. It was eating undercooked pork. That kind of thing.
Rest in power.
Thank you, Roy. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Strychnine. Strychnine.
Yeah, she didn't die of poisoning.
How are we to know that, though?
You made a pork illness strychnine, which is, I believe, a device that you would use to purposely poison someone.
And my great-grandmother, who I never met, by the way, family lore tells it was not poisoned. She died of eating undercooked pork. And not the only one of my kin to do so. Used to be a plague, yeah. Eating undercooked pork used to be a plague in America. Around the turn of the century and the early 1900s, that was a thing.
Couldn't they just have cooked it more?
Yeah, I don't know the story behind that. I wasn't around then, believe it or not.
It's called trichinosis, Greg.
There you go. So I was close. What did I say, strychnine?
How many relatives did you lose to undercooked pork?
My grandmother's mother is the only one that I'm totally aware of, but the rumor within the family was that we had plenty. There were plenty, yeah. Thinned out the whole herd, the whole Doogie herd. Why are we laughing?
I'm laughing.
I'm sorry for your loss.
That concludes our Tom
Condolences.
Brady
Stick a
coverage
pork in
for
her.
the day.
Stick a pork in her.
It was their undooging.
Oh, there you go.
We take a timeout. We continue.
We want to bring you some new voices around here with some expertise, and Ben Solak does a great job, as a lot of people do at The Ringer, for the Ringer's NFL show as part of football coverage. And we like this kind of expertise when he writes to prove to you how much he knows about the sport. Quote, "We've been trying to figure out Cincinnati all season. Now the Bengals will play for a championship. How is what he asks." I love that he has no idea. And none of us do. But he probably does has some theories, and he could probably help us shape today's news as well. So we'll talk about the Bengals in a second, Ben. But thank you for joining us. And can you please help us understand what it is that we are witnessing right now in real time? I have not seen a football retirement being celebrated like this, and it's because it's really hard, even with all the words in the world, to explain how great this person has been dominating a sport that we've seen the last 3 weeks can be hella random.
Yeah, there's too many things. He played for 22 years. Just too much stuff happened in the world that occurred over the course of 2 decades for you to properly contextualize like what Brady is, what he means, how he impacted the game. You can break his career into thirds and have 3 Hall of Fame careers. That level of consistent dominance is just impossible to calibrate to. So everybody will remember Brady for whatever they want to remember him as, for however much they loved him or they hated him. I was an Eagles fan growing up during prime Brady era. I watched us lose a Super Bowl to him and then beat him in a Super Bowl. I always remember him for dropping a pass. You know what I mean? Like it's whatever you choose to remember Brady for, you can. So there's just so much stuff that it's up to everybody what they want to remember him as.
Do you have a childhood memory that is before Brady? Because you ain't old. And so your entire sports lifetime, I'm asking you if you have any kind of human memory before Tom Brady started winning football games.
Right. Have you ever heard of Norm Van Brocklin would be another way to put it?
Or Blanda.
Yeah, well, because I'm an Eagles fan, I do know Norm. Of the 1960s great Eagles championship, which was their only championship before the Super Bowl win. But no, my entire football career is defined by Brady, right? My entire football memory is defined by Brady. I was raised by a Jets fan and a Steelers fan. All I did was hate Tom Brady. My earliest memory is Brady in that 03, 04 season. I mean, I was born in 97. And so, yeah, all I have is Brady in New England dominating the football landscape. And thinking about football after him is confusing and disorientating.
Can you explain to us how he did what he did the last 7 years when there's legitimately no precedent for a quarterback aging that way?
I think science will be able to explain it to us soon. I think that, I would love to tell you that you eat avocados and your arm gets stronger at the age of 44, but I don't think that's the whole story. And I think probably there are things that Brady was doing in terms of working out in the offseason, in terms of handling his body, that are going to become far more popular as this gets looked into, especially now that he's retired and kind of the competitive edge won't matter. But there's no explanation that we have right now for Brady not only dominating the way he did, but becoming stronger. Like this was like comic book villain nonsense. He was zinging the ball at 43 the way he did not at 25. And that to me is a scientific marvel and a mystery that will be answered by Nobel Prize winners in 2035 and that no earlier. I think Brady is a cyborg and we will eventually get to autopsy him and see what's inside.
Even if it is steroids and HGH, let's just say make it the worst possible thing. I've never seen something, therefore it must be cheating. Even if it is that, it would still be wildly impressive.
It'd be awesome. It was one of the coolest things you've ever seen. It was amazing.
Ben, the sweatshirt I'm wearing is older than you are, by the way. But I want to ask you this because it seems so bizarre to ask it, considering Brady's 44 years old. But how surprised were you that he's retiring now?
Very surprised. He led the league in passing attempts, passing yards, and passing touchdowns, and then set a single season record for passing completions this past year. I would have told you that Brady was going to step on the throat of the league for as long as he could just to prove he could. And when Schefter first reported he was retiring and Brady, the camp of Brady kind of came out with maybe he's not, I was extremely worried that Brady was just going to come back for a year out of spite just to prove that nobody gets to decide when Tom retires. Tom decides and that's it. And to see him go out, it was funny. I was talking with Kevin on this on the Ringer NFL show. To see him go out on a divisional round loss somehow feels like he's not going out on top, which speaks to the level of consistency he's had in his career. That he was part of the third to last week of the NFL season. And we're like, wow, it's kind of a disappointing end. I thought he would go further his last season, right? So I would have guessed with a playoff loss in that way and with the volume he was carrying, the career he was carrying, he would have come back. And I think that, the way he's contextualizing this, other pursuits, other things he wants to go into, he talks about his family a lot, speaks to the fact that like Brady just wants to do other things. And if ennui is what got Tom Brady out of the NFL, I and 31 other teams are very, very pleased with that.
What could you criticize him for?
Like being stuffy and annoying in New England, but then he went to Tampa and became cool. The Tampa era for Brady is so important to me in terms of remembering his career, because when he was in New England, he was just so shuttered off, and it was so, we are the New England machine. We are this kind of Terminator, never to be stopped force. Then when he went to Tampa, got a little bit sauced after the Super Bowl win, started chucking the Lombardi trophy across boats. It gave you that sense, that reminder that, yeah, this guy is not only an incredible quarterback, an incredible competitor, but he's been such an incredible leader for 2 decades in his career because he can hang. Like he's cool. Like he does fun things. Like he's done a great job leading a lot of different personalities, a lot of different styles of play over the course of his career in New England. And we could always chalk that up to like the Patriots just being so good at business, do your job, whatever. But then in Tampa Bay, we got to see that Brady had that spirit to him as well. He seemed like a guy you want to play with. And so the biggest criticism you had was that like, in New England, he just seemed kind of lame. Like, he just didn't seem very fun. But then in Tampa Bay, we got this like little midlife crisis, Tom, and it was a good time.
Well, given that, I want to ask everybody in the group this question. You have to choose between what I'm asking you here. When did Tom Brady prove more? The last 2 years or the 20 before it?
Last 2 for me.
It's got to be the 20 before it, just because that level of consistency, championship consistency, is still unmatched, even if you get rid of the Tampa years. But that Tampa period was a very, very, very valuable kicker. It was a very emphatic answer to that Brady versus Belichick question we all asked in 2020. So it's up there. It's really valuable. But for me, like 2 decades in which he owns the league is kind of difficult to argue against.
The reason that I say that, though, is because football can be such a mystery, and his career has been such a mystery, that if not for the last 2 years, I would have always thought, even as someone watching this over 20 years, well, Belichick had something to do with that. Belichick is responsible in ways that I can't understand because I don't understand football the way Belichick does. And the last 2 years have done a hell of a job of simply erasing that for me.
It was Brady and Belichick for 20 years. The last 2, it was just Brady. I mean, and that's a big difference.
Yeah, that kicker, right, the more you talk about it, the more I feel like, that kicker is just, it is critical. It is legacy defining, legacy cementing. It does feel that way.
He almost ended on an interception. Like if the Patriots had their way, I think maybe Brady retires on a pick 6. Brady
Right.
At home in a playoff game.
And Belichick gets to keep the credit forever. And then since then, oh, wait a minute. No, Mac Jones ain't going to be that. Like, don't try and talk me into that just because he's done it one time. Like, don't try and talk me into, please, Belichick can figure out a way to do that with another 6th-round pick.
But GOAT stopped being a debate after 28-3. Like, there wasn't like Manning or Brady. That shit stopped after he came back against the NFL MVP.
But no, but I would also say though that people would say, well, is that Belichick? Like, I still think the fact that he did what he did the last 2 years, where he's retiring on top. Explain to me how good he was this season. Let's just do it that way.
Sure.
This season, explain to the people how good he was.
So Brady was hitting windows in terms of like throwing middle of the field, throwing against contested coverage this year that he was not doing ever in New England. In Parks, he didn't have to, right? They would just put like every Wes Welker clone they had out there, and they would always be able to find and manufacture this space. But the fact that we're dealing with like geriatric Rob Gronkowski 20 yards down the field, running with linebackers who are like built to run with these guys now. Linebackers are light and they're fast and they're built to cover these routes. And Brady would just hammer that throw in there, right? The fact that Brady is also like still managing the pocket, still bouncing around, taking hits. He's 44, taking hits from like 25-year-olds who all they've wanted to do for their entire life is hit Tom Brady. And he bounces back up, right? Bloody lip, goes back out there and drives for 24 points against the Rams. Like the level of physical dominance that we saw from Brady is another thing that was a little bit inaccessible in his time in New England. The book on Brady was obviously he was very physically gifted, but that mentally, post-snap, he was just able to take over the game. Then he went to Tampa Bay, and all of a sudden it was, all right, can you hit Mike Evans, a contested window, outside the numbers, 15 yards down the field? And Brady's never had the strongest arm, just zinging that thing in there. So there's a level of physical dominance that was also proven in his 40s in a different place.
Ben, I can construct an argument, no joke. I can construct an argument based on the last 2 years that Belichick held Brady back by not getting him weapons like Randy Moss more often. Because the year that Brady had his best year when he had Randy Moss. Brady had his best year when he had someone like Mike Evans in Philadelphia.
This last year was really close to that Moss year.
Excuse me, not in Philadelphia. When he has Mike Evans in Tampa, you see Brady can throw still downfield. The deep ball that I was criticizing, saying it had lost some of its accuracy 7 years ago, is because Belichick didn't get him anybody he could throw it to down there.
It's absolutely true, and that's another, like, we're running out of superlatives here for Brady. Everything is amazing, but one of the things that'll stick with me as a film guy, football guy, whatever, is that quarterbacks, players, but especially quarterbacks, don't change their stripes. They are who they are. They have strengths and weaknesses. They have offenses that work for them. Sometimes they're better in that offense, sometimes they're worse, but like, this is what they have to do. The Patriots, and now this Tampa era, they span like every style of passing offense that we've seen in the last 20 years. And Brady won a Super Bowl in all of them. He was a complete chameleon. You could do anything in the world with him in terms of concepts and drops and what protection do you want? What style receivers do you want? There's nobody else we get to talk about like that had the mental ability and the physical ability to just run anything. And that to me is will always like stand out with Brady, even as like Mahomes dominates or Lamar dominates or Allen dominates. They all do it in their skill sets, in their style of offenses. Brady was a chameleon. He can be whatever you like.
As the news rolls in, as the reporting rolls in, as we treat this retirement unlike any that we have seen in this sport, what are some of the numbers and some of the reporting that you have seen where you've been like, okay, that helps me understand Tom Brady a little bit better, or that insight is an interesting insight on Tom Brady that I have not heard?
I like he's won 17% of the Super Bowls. I think it's 17%, right? It's just like, hey, all of them, Brady has just, one out of every 6 or whatever it is. I love the fact that he also has more Super Bowls than the Patriots. That's my favorite part of the Bucs era, and getting that one extra one is that he now has more than the Steelers, but then also more than New England. Also you'll see his playoff passing numbers get put up against like career numbers for other quarterbacks, because he just has so much volume in the playoffs in terms of games that he's played, that you can look at just playoff performance as like a career of several seasons worth of attempts. And that, again, it expresses the degree to which there was consistent championship level performance. Like it emphasizes it's not what Brady did, it's what he never did, which was he never fell off. He never took a step back. He was always that guy year in and year out.
I am enjoying being knee-jerk prisoner of the moment and really accenting what these last 2 years were for this legacy and this retirement that we are celebrating today, that could have been 2 weeks after a grade loss in Foxborough to Ryan Tannehill, career ending on a pick six, because this is a different thing because he's retiring on top, and it's unusual. Once upon a time, before the Miami Heat got LeBron James and Chris Bosh, Stugotz was saying on the radio loudly this.
Has Pat Riley failed Dwayne Wade? Seriously. Has Riley and the organization, because Dan, all these other teams, all the other contenders went out and made moves, and the Heat haven't done a single thing. What have they done for Dwayne Wade? They got him Jermaine O'Neal, a broken Jermaine O'Neal. He's going to leave here, and he should leave here.
They got him Shaq.
Yeah.
And a championship.
Since then. Let's sell him on this notion of all these guys we're going to get next year. None of these guys want to come here. None of them. He's failed, Dwayne Wade. Failed the fans. Failed the city.
Did Belichick fail Tom Brady at the end? Failed the fans, failed the city, because he did not build him the team that he just got in Tampa that had been 7-9. He kept doing it, wanting to do it with Amendolas and Troy Browns and Wes Welkers, and didn't get him a goddamn deep threat.
It's funny, I'm Philadelphia Pill, because the whole time I was like, yes, they have failed Joel Embiid. That's where I was fully ready to go on the Ben Simmons thing, but I don't think so. Just because 6 championships is 6 championships. Like I said, that level of consistency is incredible. I don't think us on the outside knew for certain that when Brady went to Tampa, we were going to get this. And I think that then on the inside, with Belichick knowing what they were doing well and knowing how consistently they were doing it, I'm not surprised there wasn't an urgency to change the model. I'm not surprised there wasn't an urgency to say, like, we have to really open this thing up. It was, we're not losing. We're beating everybody. We're not gonna fix what ain't broke, sort of an approach. And again, like 6 rings over 20 years, that's really not broke. So I'm not surprised there was no move to change it.
I appreciate that you answered that question seriously. I do appreciate it.
What's the weirdest part of Tom Brady's career? Because for me, it's like the 9 years in between Super Bowl victories in what would be, for normal career timelines, the prime of his career.
Is it 9 years?
That he went
Holy
without
smokes.
wins. Like, yeah, because you had the Roethlisberger. I think Rodgers was in there. Wes Welker found a way to play with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady for multiple years.
Never win anything.
Never win a title.
Yep. And now he's the wide receiver coach of the San Francisco 49ers. And guess what he hasn't done there? Rough.
I like that he's fact-checking, because it's startling that he went
9 years.
It doesn't feel like that.
No, it doesn't.
He went 9
feel
years
like
without winning. Because remember, there
The
were 2
silence
Eli
is-
Manning victories in there over
Yep.
Tom Brady, but he went like
Right.
9 years. Yeah. Joe Flacco was in there 9 years in between Super Bowl victories in what would be considered by most the prime of an
But
NFL
this
quarterback's
is
career.
what is great about the Tom Brady story is he says he's got 3 different Hall of Fame careers. Is that during one of them, a 9-year split, Stugotz would have been that entire time calling him a choker because he couldn't win the big one.
But he won so many big ones before
I
that.
know, but I'm saying if you had just gotten there and arrived at the 9 years,
All over him.
if those
Yes.
years had been the first years, you would have dragged him down with your teeth in his neck.
Overrated.
Overrated choker. Win a big one. The other games, what did you find interesting about what happened with the Chiefs at the end?
I think we want to read a lot into it. We would love for there to be a model to beat the Chiefs. That'd be so nice, wouldn't it? I'm not sure that there is. It's a well-coached defense in Cincinnati. It's kind of like a no stars, everybody's above average. We can all kind of do everything defense, and that's good. But the reality is they watched that first half and they said, all right, well, we can't do anything. So we're going to drop as many guys into coverage, and we are going to hope that this guy, this king of football, this Titan, just makes enough mistakes that we can hang. And I think that kind of has to be your approach against Mahomes. He was the least blitzed quarterback this year by a country mile. Every team at this point is just kind of rushing 4, rushing 3, dropping 7, dropping 8, and saying, we're going to take the fun out of this for you, man. Like, you're not going to get to do your scramble drill nonsense. You're not going to get to go your deep throws. You're going to have to nickel and dime us, and we're just going to make you sad. And then hopefully by the third quarter and the fourth quarter, you're bored enough that you start doing dumb things. That's where Cincinnati got him. And that's awesome. I'm not sure it's replicable, especially because teams were doing that sort of an approach in the back half of the season, and Mahomes was showing maturity and he was showing growth there. So I think you've seen that kind of arc, that development from Mahomes over the course of this year. Didn't get it done against Cincinnati. I think coming off of the high of that Bills game probably made him feel like, all right, it's time to go. Fourth quarter, like I just did this last week and he was pushing and that wasn't great. I think over time, this sort of an approach can put a ceiling on the offense, but it's not going to stop it. You're still going to be dealing with high 20s, low 30-point totals, and that's just the reality of Mahomes and this Chiefs team.
You mentioned that Cincinnati is a well-coached defense. You were careful to not say that they're a good defense. I would venture to say
correct.
that Cincinnati has found itself in a Super Bowl with not a good defense, and also sneaky, not a good offense either. If you look at DVOA, and it's not like they turned it on in the postseason either. Their offensive numbers in the postseason weren't great. They weren't overly impressive. This is one of the more improbable Super Bowl runs I've ever seen.
Ben, how much of that are you going to assign to 20 of their games? 16 of them have been by 3 points, and we're playing random ball for three weeks now, and all season, but for 3 weeks.
Chaos reigns, which it's always a nice reminder that chaos reigns, right? Because you're here as a football writer and you're like, I can explain things. And then the Bengals enter the Super Bowl and you remember that you're nothing and you have no idea what's going on, and coin flips decide everything. But that's where we are with Cincinnati. And it gives us a perspective on the little edges that matter for Super Bowl contenders, right? The Rams trade a second and a third round pick for Von Miller. And it's like, is this a good usage of resources? Honestly, we really don't know. It's an extremely difficult calculus. I can prove that because the Bengals are in the Super Bowl. It takes a lot of luck. It takes a lot of positive regression to get to this place. You might as well just load up on stars and hope that they make those plays for you. Cincinnati being here is great news for them long term. You get playoff experience from Burrow. Hopefully you get buy-in from Mike Brown, the owner/general manager. He might employ 3 scouts next year. Whoa. Hopefully this helps them out long term. Short term, they don't read like a team that belongs here. But hey, you've got enough positive coin flips to get to the spot. Get a few more. Win a championship, baby.
31 years without a playoff victory, a notoriously cheap ownership group that you can reasonably question was the only one in the NFL not really trying to win during the Marvin Lewis years. You couldn't do that with any other football team. And this part is the funniest part to me. And it's just wonderful because we're going to spend 2 weeks saying the Bengals are back and Burrow and Jamar Chase are going to change the way football's played. But what he just said is so close from being Derek Carr throws into the end zone, they go for 2, and an interim coach with the Raiders is riding into the Super Bowl because somehow they overcame.
The Titans had the ball with 2 minutes left in a tie game. Bengals win? That's just not – that usually doesn't happen 3 games in a row, but that's where we were.
They've won, but they – I saw some standings that were reversed just to account for if every team won a 3-point game that they had lost, or every 1-score game, and you'd get an entirely different league. The Bengals are there, and it doesn't really have a good explanation beyond football. Just football happened.
Yep, and that's why we whenever you go and you build out projections for next season, you take all the 1-score games, you make them 50-50, and you look at the blowouts and the dominant wins. And that's where teams actually project onto sticking next year. Jamar Chase right now is he leads the league in receiving yards over expectation, which is a ESPN stat. A lot of this is very, very, very House of Cardsy. But if you're Cincinnati, you don't care. You don't care right now. 2 weeks in the national spotlight in the Super Bowl. Love it. Enjoy it.
I'm just not sure, though, that the greatest tribute to Tom Brady is that he won above all that, right? Above Aaron Rodgers wins once. Above Eli won twice and Peyton won twice. That doesn't make a lot of sense. They're not the same quarterback.
Nick Foles has one.
But above all that, he stands atop, and then Nick Foles beats him.
No birds, baby.
Dominates him. Dominates him. Nick Foles takes the Super Bowl MVP from him. It's ridiculous. Thank you, Ben.
Of course. Appreciate it, y'all.
Can we talk about what's going on with Brian Daboll? Because the Giants now,
Dabes,
after the era of Gettleman, Brian Daboll, the quarterback whisperer who made Josh Allen go from terrible to an MVP candidate, arrives at the Giants era of Brian Daboll football with a truck, the color of Giants football.
It was giant blue. I believe it was a Ford Tundra on a muddy, rainy day in New Jersey. That's the way you pull up for the job, Dano.
That's a fine. Toyota makes a Tundra.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. $5.
Truck testicles, I imagine, on the back seat or on the back of the car. And Mike Ryan, for some reason, has been displaying and showing everybody. Explain to me what it is you're doing here with Brian Daboll's facial hair where you're putting it on his head.
I didn't do it. Reddit did that. I found it on Reddit where they reversed Brian Daboll's face. Bottom one on top, top one on bottom. And I have to say, Looks pretty good both ways.
See, we talked about this on Monday. We're doing this thing again where we're just making fun of him because he doesn't look really smart. You know, if they would have hired somebody with like, you know, nerdier with glasses, we'd be like, oh, next offensive genius. But he's got that tough guy look to him, so now we're dismissing him.
Easy.
Body shaming.
We haven't started making fun of him yet. You
Right.
came in here all defensive.
We're talking about his like flipping his face around and putting his beard on his head.
That's funny.
You've been
It's funny. Yeah,
That's funny.
I'm just saying.
I have not taken a shot at Brian Daboll yet. I mean, I'm getting to it.
I'm
but
just
I
saying,
haven't.
it's just we do this thing. It's cool. Like being nerdy is in the NFL. That's the point I'm really trying
Did
to
you
make.
know
with
that
this.
Brian Daboll is Canadian?
Did not know that. Did not know that he'd look just as good with his facial hair on top of his head as he does with his facial hair
Just as
on
good
his
as a
face.
slight exaggeration. There's a significant double chin, which is unkind to Brian Daboll.
This dude's a bit of a job jumper. You know?
I think you guys are being xenophobic now.
What, because he's Canadian?
Yeah.
Just
Just be careful.
I'm still, I was reminded that the Canadians burnt down the White House once.
This was chanted at a soccer game. The USA played Canada on Sunday afternoon, and one of the fans were singing, you know, I forget the tune, but it was "We burnt down your White House."
It was a terrible loss, by the way.
Yeah, Canada.
Yeah,
Canada's
it was.
good.
Well, I think they're third now in their division. Top three automatically qualify for the World Cup. They're in danger. I mean, they are in serious
there?
danger of not
Who's
qualifying.
they and why are you?
USA?
Okay.
A little soccer talk.
Are they going to miss another World Cup?
I think we'll be all right. But there's a chance. A small one, but a chance.
If Stugotz gets to be
And
right about
Pulisic
this,
was playing. I mean,
if
Pulisic.
Not well, but
He was bad.
Yeah, overrated.
not a lot of confidence in the way you said his name. It didn't feel like.
None at all.
I wanted to ask, I saw this in the news. There were a couple of famous celebrity marriages here, Stugotz, where you've got Shailene Woodley is married to Aaron Rodgers, and the reports are that they don't talk about politics or are off to the side. And then Cheryl Hines, who plays the wife of Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm, or the ex-wife, is married to Robert F. Kennedy, a anti-vaxxer, and she also says, look, our politics, we love each other very much, but we disagree on many of the issues of the day. Now, James Carville was married to Mary Madeline, and they had very different politics, but don't you think that in today's climate of people being on the other side from each other when it comes to politics, that is something that is going to be really hard to make work in a marriage if you are diametrically opposed to the person you love? As if a relationship doesn't have enough obstacles before that, you can't agree on anything when it comes to opinions. Is that passion sparks something, or does that make a marriage or a relationship vastly more difficult than it would be if you had, you know, similar sensibilities?
It really limits what you can talk about without fighting. If you can't talk about any current issues, you can't flip on the news, you can't talk about something you saw on social media, if you're that diametrically opposed, it really limits what you can talk about. You're spending a lot of time around each other or you're just bickering all the time and you're making snide remarks and the relationship frays very quickly, I would imagine.
What do you think they talk? I mean, I feel like we could turn any conversation into politics if you go like one layer deeper, right? Like name one thing, we can find a way to make it about politics.
But if you are dealing in the case of Robert F. Kennedy with a whole bunch of anti-vaxxing, and you're next to Larry David, and you work with Larry David, and Larry David is being interviewed by Michael Kay and saying, bleep if I alienate any of the people who wear a red hat. I just look at a marriage that has that in it, and I'm like, how do you guys do that? That would be really hard given where we are today. Maybe it was a quainter thing when James Carville and Mary Madeline were doing it, and it wasn't what it is now. But if I tell you that Shailene Woodley is trying to support Aaron Rodgers at a time that he's coming under more public turbulence than he's ever seen, and she doesn't agree with what he's saying or doesn't agree with what he's fighting for, doesn't that make it really hard for him to come home at night and get something that feels like support when he's got to, no matter how immortal he thinks he is, like that's got to be hard when you've always been liked, especially if you care about being liked. And now all of a sudden you're in the middle of a bleep storm and you're coming home and your wife doesn't agree with you either. Like, you tell me how
she is supporting you. She's trying to support
but you tell me how. I don't know what's going on in their personal life. I don't even know if it's true, the reports that they don't agree on this stuff. But if you're in a place right now where everyone's divided and fighting, I would imagine it'd be really hard in a marriage to navigate some of this stuff, as some of this stuff today tears up families that didn't even know how loved ones used to think before.
Yeah, it's you're selling it short if you think it's just marriage. It's families, and there are plenty of people in my family and extended family that I don't agree with politically. That it's just we don't talk about that. I do find it kind of cute that you can't really wrap your mind around how this works. Like, Cynthia and I are pretty aligned politically, and even she said during the Trump presidency, no more politics, because it would enrage me. I would watch the TV and want to vent for 2 hours, and it would ruin, if that guy sent off a tweet, it would ruin my mood for days. And it got to the point that we agreed, yeah, let's keep politics out of here.
But you say family, and that's one thing, but you're closer to your spouse than you are to just intimacy, daily routine.
No, but Dan,
it's not just extended family. It's not people who don't live with you. It's someone you're sharing a bed with, and you can put some of that off to the side. But it's different, Mike, if you share sensibilities and just agree not to talk about it because it's upsetting. It's entirely different if you are on polar opposite sides with someone and then sharing a bed with that person.
It's a bit trickier if it's the person you're living with, if it's the person you're married to. But to Mike's point, Dan, I have a friend who has gone through this where his parents, he is vaccinated, his parents are anti-vaxxers, and he's had to tell his parents, you'll never see your grandkids again. I mean, that's it.
Okay, but families, again, that don't live with you are different than every day getting irritated by all the things that can plague a relationship if you are not aligned. And then to not be aligned here, I'm not saying it has to be a deal breaker. I just don't understand how you'd navigate it. I really don't. Are you just going dancing all the time? Like, are you just swinging from the chandeliers, having sex all the time, and
staying
not,
away from the difficult
and not
conversations?
Talking at all.
But if that bastard Neil Young is on a song, then we got problems. See, everything's politics.
I think you cuddle up, watch
Alka-Seltzer.
Ozark, and politics isn't everything.
Let's talk about Ozark. Good transition, because I am saving them. I'm mad at them.
I'm tired
for
of Ozark enough. Seriously, I don't like series. You come on when you want to come on. You take 2.5 years off. You pop back in with 5 episodes.
There was a
You expect me
pandemic.
to watch all 5? I don't care. I'm tired of Ozark.
There was a pandemic.
I'm tired of Ozark.
So you can't imagine how Rogers and Woodley get along when they just disagree on everything?
If I was having sex with Stugotz, I would not have the relationship with Stugotz that I have. I just know that Stugotz is always trying to fuck me. And Tony. Different ways.
Oh, Tony.
Different ways.
I like him.
I think you
I've
successfully.
been fucking you for years.
I'm so tired of it.
Chris Cody, I think you successfully thwarted any making fun of Brian Daboll this segment.
Telling you,
Best
a little
defense.
chubby. You're a little chubby. Everyone wants to make fun of you.
In a truck.
It's showing up in that truck and wearing that suit.
He's trying to be a giant. It's their color. What should he have shown up in cowboy? I mean, it's the same colors.
What's wrong with the truck?
It's the Bills truck. It's the Bills color too. You think he bought that truck just for the job to pull in today?
That was
no
well
way.
put, by the way,
Thank
Chris.
you. I mean,
what you
that's
just
just like
said.
That whole video was weird.
He's tired.
Why do they show him parking his truck in the middle of a driveway, then walking in, shaking a hand? It just seems too much.
Don't get me wrong. That job has fired in 2 years written all over it. But let's not make fun of him.
It's what it should have said on the license plate of that truck. Fired in 2 years. That's what Joe Judge lasted, and Dayball has resurrected a career that was laughed at 10 years ago. By now, inheriting the mantle of Gettleman to try and fix all that ails them in New York. I don't know how you fix all of that. Is it because he thinks he can fix Daniel Jones? It must be, right?
I think he sees a lot of Josh Allen potential in Daniel Jones. Like, he's big, he can run, he's got a decent arm, and I think he thinks I could turn that guy into something close to Josh
I'd
Allen.
hire Dayball, too, if you're promising me that he has the ability to coach the reckless out of a turnover machine.
Who's better, Daniel Jones or Jimmy G?
I really liked what I saw from Daniel Jones in the brief moment that all the Giants were healthy. And
no,
it
but
did look to correct some of that turnover.
Garoppolo is better because he turns the ball over less. Like
But if Dayball can fix that.
Among the quarterbacks, do you believe he can?
He did it with Josh Allen.
Do you believe that's a thing that can be fixed? Because before Josh Allen, I wouldn't have believed that's a thing that could be fixed.
Right. So I think if anybody has an argument to say I can coach that out of somebody, it would be Brian Daboll.
Because the turnover problem is an Achilles heel that Daniel Jones fumbles a lot. He's reckless. He will ruin a lot of drives where he goes right down the field and then does something dumb at the end. But they were not healthy all year, and they have no skill guys. And Josh Allen looked like that before Diggs when their skill guys were limited.
Well, the Giants do have skill guys. They have actually quite good skill guys.
Always hurt.
Darius Toney and Saquon Barkley, but they're hurt. So. I actually think it's a good situation. What do we do with maybe it's just coaching, but I've been in this position professionally before where they introduce you to the new person running things and they mention all the places they've been and they rattle off like after 5 places you're like, okay, all right, you've been at how many places in the last 14 years? Brian Daboll's been at 8 different places in the last 14 years, and he was good at one of them. And yes, he did coach Josh Allen up because prior to Brian Daboll getting there, Josh Allen looked like a massive bust and someone that we telegraphed this kind of bust. Mina Kimes laughed at him in the draft famously, and we all thought he would be bad. But Josh Allen has incredible skill sets. He has an arm,
and so does
massive.
And Daniel Jones has. There's no disputing that Daniel Jones is a great athlete.
Daniel Jones is a pretty decent comp when it comes to athleticism.
Right,
at
that much.
position.
You think it's?
I think Daniel Jones is faster than Josh Allen. Josh Allen's just like this powerful Cam Newton type runner.
Also, Daniel Jones has a lower career interception percentage than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
How about fumbles, though? The thing I think of with Daniel Jones is it's not just interceptions. I think of somebody who doesn't have the awareness around him and gets the ball hit out a lot because he fumbles a great deal.
Right, and that can be improved with better offensive line play. They have not had a good offensive line, Daniel Jones' entire time over there. I think a lot of Dolphin fans were kind of offended at the notion that Daboll would seemingly pick the New York Giants job over the Dolphins job. And why would you go with Daniel Jones over Tua? And if you're just looking at like raw talent, what this person can do, once you get past the looks like he got casted to play Eli Manning in a Lifetime television
You'd
movie,
rather have Jones.
Daniel Jones has those raw talented attributes that kind of are comparable to Josh Allen in a way. At least for the offense that Brian Daboll wants.
That was weak. That was tepid.
Yeah, but he sees that and thinks maybe I could turn him into something that's close to Josh.
We really don't talk enough about what a freak Josh Allen is.
Josh Allen, I don't think there is a kind of sort of as athletic as Josh Allen, unless you're going to go like Cam Newton. Because Ross Tucker is correct when he throws the argument out there. Hey, is this the most athletic quarterback ever? Daniel Jones can scoot. It's about
he really can
like that, but I wouldn't call him best athlete. Like I understand why the Giants drafted him because he has some tools that are apparently a little above average on special skill set, but not Josh Allen. Not these 60-yard throws where you're like, how the hell did he do that rolling to his right? Like I really don't think that Daniel Jones athletically is very close to Josh Allen because I don't think many are. Like I just many ever. People bounce off of more than Roethlisberger. Defenders bounce off of Josh Allen because he's kind of unfathomably strong. Like they bounce off and he spins away from people in ways that Daniel Jones simply does not do.
It's like peak Roethlisberger, though. Like I get you, Roethlisberger. We've seen the last
better.
5 years.
It's better than Roethlisberger. It's impossible To tackle him
in the pocket, Roethlisberger was pretty crazy to watch, but he's faster. So outside the pocket, I get what you're saying.
I'm not even talking about outside the pocket. I'm talking about the number of guys that I've seen have a clean shot at Josh Allen and either miss him or hit him on the hip and bounce off because he knows they're not going to tackle him. Like, he's doing something there that I have not seen a whole lot of quarterbacks do.
But Daniel Jones did something and has continued to do something that I don't think any of us knew he could do, which is run the ball, and is a great athlete. And I think Dable sees, like, hey, I can run that guy out to the right, to the left. He's fast, he's big, he's powerful, and I could do my running game that way and get 5-6 yards at a time. He averages 6 yards per carry for his career, Daniel Jones. I didn't know he was that good of an athlete coming out of college.
Gettleman thought it. His measurables were all very strong. I just do not expect a coach to be able to travel with a briefcase and get out of a blue truck, and all of a sudden what he's got in that briefcase is my quarterback doesn't turn it over anymore. Like, I don't think that's Dayball's got that in the back of that blue truck.
Just to illustrate that point, Daniel Jones, both recovered and lost, has fumbled 36 times in 38 games. So it's basically a fumble per game.
What's the car that would have said that he has it figured out?
Range Rover, Woody says.
Really? I'd take you as a G-Wagon type of guy.
Look at us.
G-Wagons can problematic. Now we're back in politics.
Range Rover's kind of like a status symbol now, right?
Little pigskin debate we had there. A little who you got? A little Jimmy G.
Well, did you hear in the middle of that, somebody took Daniel Jones over Tua? I was wondering what your opinion on that was going to be.
Well, like Kevin Clark said on Sunday night, geography is fate. Like, who knows what a lot of these quarterbacks would look like in different systems? Like, if Daniel Jones had played his whole career with the San Francisco 49ers, they might be a Super Bowl champion right now.
I regret not asking Kevin Clark if he thought that I put Scotty Miller in the Cooper Cup role, whether I would get really crisp routes and all of a sudden 2,300 regular season and postseason receiving yards. I wondered how many guys, because
he was trending that way before Antonio Brown came.
But Kevin Clark did say Calvin Ridley could be doing exactly what it is Cooper Kupp is doing.
Stephon Diggs too.
If he played in the Rams offense. I wonder how low I would have to go before a Scotty Miller made an appearance on being an exceptional route runner. None of you believe that Daboll can bring this with him, right? Or do you? Because he's done it once, and I've never seen it. Jared Goff and Josh Allen are the only two quarterbacks I've ever seen where I've looked at them and said after a year of watching them in the pros, that dude's terrible. He can't play. And then all of a sudden they get fixed by either a scheme or a coach. It's not something that I've seen before. Josh Allen was hugely inaccurate in college. Jared Goff was not inaccurate in college. He was inaccurate in the pros. He was terrible in the pros when he got here, and then he's in the Super Bowl. Daniel Jones was kind of terrible in college.
I mean, not for Duke.
Beat Notre Dame. I was there, 2016. Rough. 38-35, game-winning field goal.
You guys don't think, I mean, he wasn't Josh Allen in college. He played at Duke and he won some games, but we were all stunned by him being drafted. We were drafted in the first round.
That was a shocking pick.
That was Cutcliffe.
At the time.
He lent his name to it, and that's it. Cuddy.
Do I believe Brian Daboll can take this with him? History would suggest that Brian Daboll is only an effective coach when he has a really good quarterback. So I don't think so. But he's also 46. He's had plenty of work and plenty of stops along the way. He could have just figured this thing out.
What does figuring this thing out mean, though? That I can
I
do
gotta
that?
have a quarterback like Josh Allen.
I've got to.
Give me those raw materials. I'll make something of them.
Man, if he can do that, though, wouldn't he have had fewer than 8 jobs in the last 11 years?
That's what I'm saying, though.
It's the life of a coordinator, though, right? Don't they switch a lot?
It's hit and miss there.
Not with that skill? If you're telling me he's showing up with that skill?
Good coordinators, if I'm there for 1 year, I then become a head coach. They don't go, if I'm there for a year, I become someone else's offensive coordinator, and then I'm there for just a year, and then I'm maybe a position coach, and then an offensive coordinator in college. This is not the career arc of someone. It's certainly not someone from the McVay tree. Let's just say that.
Daniel Jones had about 2,800 yards. He had 22 touchdown passes, 9 interceptions his final year at Duke. Like, that's Heisman worthy at Duke. It is. Now, if you do it at Duke, Dan, okay, with that offense, those wide receivers playing on a field that's surrounded by a track, if you do that at Duke, that's like throwing 50 somewhere else.
It's not surrounded by a track
It's
anymore.
like
Oh, it's not? Wow.
Not anymore. A few years ago, they changed that.
Exciting.
LaFleur had five stops before landing with the Packers. I just think we're being a little hard on Dable. Yeah. Take it easy. If he was skinnier with glasses, you guys.
This
would be
is
like,
all what this is about with
I
Chris
just
Cody.
don't like what's happening around here. I sense a theme. Oh, this guy's a little pudgy. Let's make fun of him.
Body shaming.
Baming.
Is there a coach that looks like Brian Dable that has been great?
Andy Reid.
He's overrated.
Right now is what he muttered at the end of overrated. He's overrated right now based on the last half of football that I saw.
I mean, this Bill Belichick has had a bunch of stops as well. You say he's a bad coach.
We need
or-
Eric Bieniemy to be a great head coach because he's fluffy.
I want to give you a little stat for my friend Hembo on Twitter, okay? Andy Reid has lost 3 conference championship games as a favorite, most all time. How about that? Overrated.
How about that?
Mm-hmm. I was wrong. It's 5. I misread the internet. That's a fine. There's a crack in my phone. It's right over the 3. It looked like a 5. Yeah, it's the
Hate
worst.
that, yeah.
So $5.
$5.
5 conference champions. He's been a favorite. He's lost.
For reading the internet wrong. $5 for reading the internet wrong.
If anything, it proves your point more, I think.
Thank you.
1 for each championship.
Oh, boy.
So Andy Reid is now overrated based on the last half of football.
Well, not now.
Well, he said right. Well, not always.
He's had some of the all-time greats. He's got 1 Super Bowl.
Mhm.
He's had McNabb.
Almost lost to Jimmy G. Also.
Alex Smith.
Have McNabb is an all-time great.
T.O.
He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
What, you just fiddled around in your pocket and then didn't pull any money out?
I don't have a 5 ski on me.
Plus, you were right.
You have so much money there. He's got so
good
many
gambling
hundreds.
weekend.
He's got so many hundreds there.
Moneyline parlay.
That's right.
And the sad night I had at Seminole Creek playing blackjack.
What's a Hall of Fame that you put Donovan McNabb in?
The Syracuse Hall of Fame?
The Syracuse Hall of Fame and the Eagles Hall of Fame. Duh.
2-timer.
Mm-hmm.
Stugotz, you owe $5, and I need to hear what made you play blackjack at Coconut Creek Casino this weekend.
Oh, it was sad, man.
Sad I didn't get the invite.
Really?
Anytime I can play blackjack, I'm there.
Really?
Well, actually, I would have punched you in the letterings once you hit on 13 against a 6 or something.
Oh, I did plenty of it. Listen, I sat down at a table. It was just me and the dealer, and that's it, one-on-one. There is nothing like blackjack one-on-one. It's the best.
I like
And
a
you
full
get
table. I don't like one-on-one. I like the full table.
No.
I hate waiting for other people to take their turns. Pay attention.
What if you're playing one-on-one and you have a great shoot and someone is watching you and they see that you're having a great shoot and then they sit down at the table with you? What do you tell them? Because a guy did that to me and I told him to leave.
Okay, so you want the rules to apply of blackjack. Like before, but when you sit down at a full table, you can do whatever you want.
Individual game.
But when it comes to you sitting alone at the table, then they need to respect the rules. And
Just wait until my run's over.
But
That's all
what
I'm saying.
You're taking like the
Just wait until my run's over. I wouldn't do it to him.
the unwritten rules of blackjack is what you're talking about. And,
Yes.
But when you're at a full table, the unwritten rules.
No.
Yeah, you're not getting that. Like there's some hypocrisy here.
It's
in
either
your-
a team game or
There
it's
is?
not.
By the way, Witty, you will not see a more aggressive Witty than at a blackjack table when someone does something wrong.
Well, put it on
In
the
Tahoe's, I was like, whoa.
Oh, we have to go play.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at LeBatard Show. Better way to play blackjack, full table or one-on-one. It escalates too quickly, one-on-one. I could lose my money very quickly that way, and I don't like it.
It can be a 20-minute night, and it's like, well, I brought all this cash here. It's gone now.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Chasing.
All right, I've studied the data. I'm going to come on with a prediction.
Uh-oh.
Not going to work out for Brian Dable.
There it is.
No, it's not.
A ruling has been made.
No. I don't think he's good enough of
'Cause
a
he's
head
fat.
coach.
What'd you look into? Like what?
I just remembered all the times that I saw him like running the offense in Cleveland. I'm like, what is this? How are we supposed to get anything out of Brady Quinn this way? And I remembered his time in Miami. I'm like, what is this? How are we going to get anything out of Matt Moore this way? And then I remembered his time in New York. I'm like, what is this? How are you going to maximize Mark Sanchez this way?
But everything I've been reading is that he's completely changed the way that he coaches the last 2 years with Josh Allen. What do you say to that, Mike?
And then I look at Daniel Jones and I'm like, what is this? How are you going to get the most out of Daniel Jones this way? I got to hold his entire career.
Maybe
under
he
a
did get
microscope.
the most out of all of them.
Yeah, those are all bad players.
Certainly Sanchez. I mean, he maximized Sanchez.
This is it's actually becoming clearer that Josh Allen was the only player that allowed him to be the coach he truly was destined to be.
It's funny how that happens.
Nah. This guy just looks like it's not going to work out. I'm sorry, Chris. He just looks it.
It is.
He looks it. The suit doesn't fit right.
He's got hoagies in
The
each
car's
cheek.
too blue.
Yes, it's got. I recognize the fat
can be
hanging
fat and
over the
smart.
suit, the hanging over the corners.
I'm going to come out and say this is an American-Canadian thing.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not a
Einstein was
fat
fat.
thing?
No, I so resent the fact that they burned down our White House.
Einstein was not fat.
Damn it, Lewis.